Do you have your speaker off?
Yeah, I turned my speaker and my mic.
I'll just use this one then. Got it.
Is that good?
Hello and good evening. Welcome to the May 19th, 2021 meeting of the Litchfield School Board. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, let's see. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
Okay. Summary of non-public actions from May 5th, 2021. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of April 21st, 2021. Mr. Burke seconded. The motion carried 5-0-0. Mrs. Ames made a motion to accept the resignation of Patricia Wagner, GMS computer teacher. Mrs. Hirschberger seconded, and the motion carried 5-0-0. That will bring us to presentations and recognitions. We have presentation on the Chs Graduation Guidelines.
That's right. And joining us tonight are Principal Lonergan and Assistant Principal Perez. And they have been very carefully walking out on the field and mapping out how they want to bring graduation forward this year. So they're going to give the board an update on their current planning.
Sure. So we're knee deep in it right now. We only have about 3 weeks left, and Mike, myself, the graduation committee have been regularly meeting about every 2 weeks for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And things are coming together pretty nicely. We are planning a similar experience last year for that we're limiting the number of guests, although we're allowing more guests this year than last year. Yeah. The students this year, which is different from last year, the students want to sit with one another as opposed to sitting in their family problems. So we did some measurements out on the field. Mike and Tori Allen were jumping around down there trying to figure out how this would lay out. And we're going to be able to do it. The students, and Mike, I think I'll let you speak to this. The students have opted to sit closer to each other. Do you want to talk a little bit about your
I can't hear him.
decision?
No, I can't
Sure.
hear him before.
Everyone can hear me all right? Okay. So Tori Allen, who's the president of the senior class, she put out a survey to the seniors on the senior Facebook page. We have a little over half of the seniors that have taken the survey so far, but it's a super majority. It's about almost 90% of the seniors as of right now that out of those 50 students would like to sit 3 feet apart with masks on. They want to march in with each other. We're going to set up 100 chairs, and then what we're going to do is we're going to push those. If you remember from last year, we had the pods set up. We're basically going to shift the pods back and out to the sides, and the parents will be, they'll have designated pods themselves.
Can you
Are they
talk
gonna
a
be
little bit about the selection of those pods, Mike?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we've been talking about selection of pods, so we don't have people showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning on Friday trying to get, their specific pod close. We're going to do a random draw of pods. So it's going to be assigned seating, assigned pods, and it's going to be a random. We're going to put every senior's name in a hat, and we're going to pull random pods. So just to make it as fair as possible and not have people showing up at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning trying to reserve their pod. We will have a section for photos again, like we had in the past. So when that student child is getting ready to go up for their diploma, they can go up to that little area in the front of the stage and be able to take pictures as well.
With their mask on.
Correct.
Right. And so the other thing we did different from last year is last year we allowed 4 family members with each of the graduates. But because we're pulling the graduate out of the pod, we can use the same size pod, but have 6 family members attend. Okay. Those family members we're asking you to wear masks with your family when you march into your pod, but then take them off when you're there. And then when we march back out and leave, to put the mask back on. We're still not through with the COVID thing, and we really want to be sensitive to that when you have a large group of people getting together.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
All right. We are still just requiring 1 car. And the reason why we set up to six family members is last year there was there was at least 3 or 4 families that couldn't bring a sibling. They had to draw straws to see which sibling had to stay home because we were only allowing 4 people per pod. So we did have a couple families, and I'm assuming we have a couple families again that will have, you know, that little extra sibling that would make that 5th person. So up to 6 people, 1 car in the parking lot.
And like last year, we're not allowing guests to stand along the fence outside. We know we had a few that were in the woods and camouflage, you know, and all of that. They'll probably do that again. But in terms of in the parking area and along the graduation site near the school side, we're not going to have people standing out in those areas. We're doing some of our similar pre-graduation celebrations with the students as well. We are also planning on doing an exterior march, taking the seniors down to LMS, doing a march through the parking lot so they can see their former teachers, see some of the kids that are down there, wave goodbye, then walk over down to GMS. We'll have the bus meet them over there, and they can walk through the parking lot, greet their former teachers down at GMS before we then ship them back to the school. When that was done, it was not only a tremendous experience for the students to go back down there, but it was a really good experience for their former teachers to see them again. And one of the things we found was that the kids need to wear name tags because some of their former teachers have no idea who they are when they're walking through them.
Will they be wearing masks?
So we're planning on doing that again. We're also planning on having a motivational speaker as part of their end of the year graduation stuff. Ed Garrity's a really good speaker. He's the kind of guy who encourages kids to make good decisions. And we just think we want to make sure that we leave them with a little bit more than we've left them with in other graduation years. We're planning some senior trips. And I know that sometimes is a little bit difficult to deal with. But one of the things we know is last year, with everything being shut down, like having the prom, we want to provide some of those opportunities for our kids. They're not interfering with school time except for one. That is the harbor cruise. We're doing that during the day, not at night. And that'll be, probably 80 to 90 students. If the remote kids want to go down, we'll provide that opportunity for them as well. And all of these things are going to be available to both remote and in-school students. So it's we don't have all these sort of the planning documents done, but we have sent out the senior schedules and all of those things to families, both the hard copy and I've sent it out through the emails. So we're anticipating Litchfield Cable Television will do. They're going to be doing the live streaming of it. So those family members, grandmothers, aunts, uncles who can't come can see it in the comfort of their own home with a nice beverage and an air conditioner. It's going to be a beautiful evening. Of that, I've been guaranteed already. So we'll go from there. Mike, I'm not sure that you have anything else that you think you want to add to this.
I do.
Were you asking this, Mike, or?
No, I was asking Mike Perez if he had anything
All right,
else.
I think he was trying to unmute.
I'm looking at the notes real quick to see if we forgot anything. Just that they will be marching in to Pop and Circumstance. Carolyn informed me that she can't play it for 25 minutes nonstop, so it's just going to be when they march in. And yeah, I think that covers it for right now. I should have. I'm going to walk the field with Dave Ross tomorrow. He's going to be up at the high school tomorrow, I guess. So him and I are going to walk the field and talk about the change. And then Tom, he's hoping that he's just going to leave the painted pods right on the field for you guys for the following week.
Yeah, we had a meeting with Dave and our office staff, counselors, and 8th grade team. We're going to follow in your footsteps pretty closely in terms of the guideline stuff.
Yeah, it will work like pretty similar, pretty easy to just transition right into the middle school. I had that in the back of my head too when I was trying to redesign this. So,
Yeah,
and I think there would be some room too. I kind of want to make it so there's a little bit of room. So if your students want to sit 6 feet apart with the mask down, you can kind of spread that out a little bit depending on
Yeah,
What
we
the
definitely
changes,
want
things
our
like that.
students to sit together as a class.
Okay.
So,
Yep. So are there any questions from the board for us?
Why do they have to wear masks if they're 3 feet apart outside?
The current guidelines are 3 feet, and I know that's indoors, but we're talking about kids, and we want to make sure that we don't end up having something happen where we have a challenge, so it just
They're
makes it.
outside.
Probably most of them are vaccinated too.
I think it's a board discussion.
I don't know. I think we're outside. If we were inside, I'm still all about keeping masks inside, but we're outside. Massachusetts, the most liberal state I know, is maskless now outside. I don't know. We're outside.
Was the CDC guideline is that fully vaccinated adults outside, right? And
Well, my
so
son is 18, so he's an
He-
adult and he's fully vaccinated.
we've taken a stance that we're not going to collect vaccination cards. We're not going to ask people about that.
Mhm.
We don't want to be in the policing business.
Right.
So this is a struggle because you're putting kids on the honor system. I am fully vaccinated. I am not. I can take a mask off. I cannot. And it's just a dilemma, I think, that it puts the school in to
For me, it's not about the
Enforce that.
vaccination status outside. For me, it's about the risk of getting COVID and the cases that have been demonstrated outside
It's
have been
non-existent.
Nothing.
few, like literally a handful in a country. Or, I've seen another report of the US, it was like 15 cases in all of US, and half of them were reported out. The people, there were construction workers that they were inside sometime, but outside. So they categorize them as outside. I mean, the risk is just drastically, we're seeing through the reports that the
Basically
risk
nil.
is drastically reduced. So I am fully in favor of masks being optional outside for every activity. That's how I feel about it.
I agree.
I agree.
What is the guidance for schools and school
the
activities?
school guidance continues to be masking
Outside.
inside.
I don't care about inside. I care about outside.
And-
Fine with
outside,
inside.
when our students take mask breaks outside, we expect them to be 6 feet apart from each other. We do not expect them
Why
to
not?
be in clusters. Occasionally you'll see that, but they should be 6 feet apart. If I'm 3 feet from somebody, chances are if I've got it and I'm breathing, who knows? I'm not willing to take that risk for our kids. And that's the challenge there.
And I think to Tara's point, I mean, we continue daily. We have met every single day as a team, and we will continue to do that. And we'll examine the data, examine the research. I will just point out that probably 80% of the cases that we've had this year are of unknown origin. And the point being, I appreciate the documented cases, but there are millions of cases that are unknown transmission. And so, as much as we're saying the documented cases are few, there are a lot of, we don't know where this thing came from. And the
How many cases
mystery,
do we have now?
the mystery with this particular virus is just mind-boggling. The leaping into fully vaccinated people who are still getting it because they're in that minor percentage of those who could. It's happening, and so we are being conservative. I appreciate where we are with it, and I appreciate the board's feedback on it. We'll certainly continue to examine it, and we're still a month away from the event too, which a lot can happen in that month.
I agree.
But
we know.
I would just gently remind the board that it's Bill's responsibility to put on graduation, and he's got to do it in a way that is safe. And those management calls are something that he has to be able to make. And we've been very flexible and open to things, but he's got to do this.
Except that later on in our agenda, we're considering optional masks at recess and masks during athletics. So it's not just
Pick a
one
lane.
event. It's
Right.
all
So
outdoor
maybe
activities.
we discuss it further under that umbrella
Mhm.
later in the agenda.
And again, under that agenda item, the NHIA pivoted on us the other day.
Right.
Right. So these things are happening rapidly and quickly. That got typed on the agenda this afternoon
Right.
because we met this morning, and this graduation discussion has occurred prior. So I just want us to recognize that we're being as nimble as we can as an organization. We don't want to have any regrets on it. And I think the feedback, the reaction, you represent the community. I understand that.
I don't understand the 6 feet. I thought it was 3. We can keep the kids in school 3 feet apart,
With
but we
masks
can't
on.
keep them outside.
With masks off?
With masks on inside.
With masks on 3 feet apart.
Right.
But we're outside. We're outside.
Let's table it for now
Okay.
and discuss it later. Because I'm sure even as we get closer to graduation, things will change. I mean, things are happening daily, like Mike said.
So one other thing with respect to graduation, diverting a little bit here. We are planning on having some of our student speakers and a guest speaker this year as well. Last year we found we ran pretty short in terms of the overall length, but we'll also give the students and Pat Keefe, the graduation speaker, the guidance to make sure that they keep it at an appropriate length for their captive audience.
Thank you.
Are all the speeches gonna be live?
Are all the speeches live, Bill?
Right now, that's what the decision Mike and I were making this afternoon. We went a little bit head to head on it in some ways that weren't very pleasant, and Mike won out on me on this one. So we are doing the senior awards, and those are going to be done virtually.
Which ones?
And
Senior
for
awards.
time experience, but also having to pull all the seniors in for the senior celebration and their parents, it's not doable right now, not the way we are at the moment.
Is that the awards night, a senior celebration?
Yeah. Typically, that's held in the auditorium with the seniors on the stage and the families in the auditorium seats, and that's just not possible.
Any other questions or comments for Bill and Mike? No? Well, thank you for the update.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good
All
night.
right, good night.
Good
I
night.
still love you guys. Sorry. I have one more kid to go.
You wait till you see where your opponent's going to be.
Yeah, randomly picked in the back row,
Yeah.
Liz.
My mother's worse than me. Sorry.
See ya. Good night.
Have a good night, Bill. So that brings us to Community Forum. Folks at home are welcome to join with the Google Meet, which is meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK, or call by phone. Number is 1-662-565-5146, and the PIN is 911-992-355#.
So you have a guest with it's a phone number, but I'll invite the person in,
Okay.
and if they are. Caller, you need to mute your computer because otherwise we're going to get feedback.
Okay.
Yep. And if you could just identify yourself and name and address, please.
This is Maureen Anton, 18 Burgess Drive. I am the parent of a high school senior. My comments relate to the upcoming high school drama production, which is the only drama production this year, which is next Wednesday night and will be a virtual event. As you're aware, the spring performance is usually open to the public, and understandably this year it cannot be. However, given the concessions that have been made for indoor sporting events, I think the 8 students performing should be allowed to have their parents present. If each student were allowed to have 2 parents or guests, there would be a total of 16 people in the auditorium who could very easily be appropriately distanced. At a minimum, the parents of the 3 graduating seniors should be allowed to watch their children perform in person, as this is their final performance. All band and choral concerts this year have been virtual, as this one will be as well. However, these students deserve to perform in front of a live audience and asking that 16 parents be allowed into the building is far less than an athletic event. This year, indoor games have taken place with each student athlete allowed 2 guests or parents. Senior nights have been held as well, again with parents in attendance, and in some cases, siblings, grandparents, etc. Given those concessions having been granted student athletes, why can't the school district allow the same courtesy to performing arts students? The performing arts program always takes a backseat to sports, but you need to realize that music, chorus, and drama are these students' passions in much the same way that sports are student athletes' passions. In terms of safety, allowing 16 parents of the 8 students into the auditorium with masks and appropriately distanced doesn't seem to be outside of the cautious and safe approach the school has had all along. My family, including my student, is fully vaccinated, and I would guess we're not alone. I don't think allowing 16 parents into the school for this event would put anyone at increased risk or harm. I ask that you please discuss and reconsider the decision to not allow parents to be present. Thank you.
You mind if I respond to that? Was it Cheryl? I
couldn't
didn't
hear
catch your
you.
first name. I'm sorry. It's not.
It's Maureen.
Maureen.
Maureen, I'm sorry. I don't know why I came up with Cheryl. As far as I know, this is not a district or school board decision, or even an admin decision. That was a decision made by the Performing Arts Department. And as have been the recorded concerts all year. As a parent of 2 performing arts students, I happen to agree with you, but I believe that was the decision made by the department, not by the board.
Or was that in their proposal at the beginning of the year? Maybe we should invite them to submit a revised proposal.
Well, so to back that up, it was, so basically each association has put out guidelines that they've asked their professionals to follow. So the Music Association put out a guideline. That's what our music department is following. We have engaged every concert where like, okay, has the dynamic shifted? Are there different guidelines? Are you in a different spot? So we have done that throughout the year with our music and performing arts people. Just like the Athletic Association has put out guidelines and we have followed those guidelines. So I can tell you that the current guidelines and stance from our music teachers has been that this is the way they want to proceed. I do think as we get closer to this event, and Maureen, when did you say the event is? I probably should know, but it's
Next week.
It's next Wednesday.
next Wednesday. So, we'll double check on that because again, it is emerging daily with information and knowledge. So we'll go back to the folks and just ask again.
Drama.
Drama, yeah.
Drama. Where are they performing?
In the
Why is
auditorium.
drama?
In the auditorium.
High school
It's in the
auditorium.
Any kids out
Why
there?
is that considered?
Performing?
Is that no
8
music?
students.
No, it's
Musical?
not music.
It's a cabaret. It's
Okay.
a Disney cabaret. So they're doing numbers
So
to
you're talking
different
potentially
Disney
16
songs.
parents in the auditorium, spaced
No
out.
difference in 16 parents watching kids play
Right,
basketball.
but our stance all year has been that the
I know.
performing arts
So I-
teachers
I
are following the
maybe they
guidance. from-
Let up
Right.
on-
I feel like they need to reevaluate
restrictions.
that.
Yeah.
It's fair.
But it's
I
not.
can tell you
So-
we have asked, in fact,
They're
Bill and I
following
had a
the association
conversation.
guidelines.
Bill and I had a conversation about it today. I believe that the teacher's stance is this is what they would like to see. But we'll double down on that and have a conversation. And, sometimes it is our role to point out, okay, here's what's happening in athletics. They may not even know how that has shifted in the last week. So we'll have that dialogue and conversation and see what we can do.
But they're following guidelines from
Music
An
Teachers
organization that's
Association, right?
directing
Yeah. And again, it's a performing arts, but it's also because it's singing. So the guidelines of singing and singing is different in terms of continuously using your voice, projecting your voice, aerosols being expelled. It's different than it is in a volleyball game or a basketball game where it's not as continuous and strenuous perhaps. So
There's a lot of talking in sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of huffing and puffing.
there's talking, but that's not singing.
Right.
And you're not.
Right.
But they could sit way in the back.
Well, thank you, Maureen, for your phone call. I appreciate it, and we'll it sounds like we'll have that discussion.
And I'll ask that somebody from the high school follow up with you, Maureen, so you'll get a direct answer, okay?
Okay, I just ask that you consider it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Another thing I just want to say while we're in this segment, Rich LaSalle asked to join, but when he came in, we were getting the feedback because he had the meeting going at the same time. So I went to mute him and I disconnected him. So Rich, if you're watching and you want to come back in, now's your chance to do that. I would just ask you to shut off the meeting so that we don't get the feedback loop.
He's calling me now.
Oh, now we're in big trouble.
Hello, Rich.
Put him on speaker.
Yep. All right. I'll put you on speaker if you'd like, and that way you can just talk. Hold on. All right, go ahead, Rich.
Hi, this is Rich LaSalle, 236 Charles Bank Road. I have been watching. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're good, Rich.
Okay. I've been watching on YouTube. For some reason, I'm not able to join you with Google Meets, but I am in support of members of the school board who are calling for a relaxation of the mask policy. You know, all along we've been told to follow the science. And I think for the most part, people have been following the science. Now the CDC has relaxed guidelines with respect to masks. The governor has relaxed the standards with respect to masks. And for some reason, people seem to hold on to this mask mandate. I'm particularly interested in forcing athletes playing outside to wear dirty, spit-filled, perspiration-filled, dirt-filled masks when they're playing softball or baseball or lacrosse. They're in far more danger of getting some disease wearing these masks, cutting down on oxygen supply, than they are from catching COVID, which most of them, at least the juniors and seniors, have had vaccines. You're creating scofflaws out of the kids. They don't wear the mask half the time. Sometimes it's enforced, sometimes it's not. It's absolutely. I was told earlier that the only reason we're wearing masks is because the NHIAA was requiring it for the tournament. I said, okay. Then the NHIAA took that requirement away. So based upon that, no reason for these athletes to be wearing masks outside when they're competing, as far as I'm concerned. That's my opinion, but I think that is an opinion that is shared by most of the people in Litchfield. Down in Texas, in Arlington, Texas, about a month ago, when COVID was much worse, they had a baseball game where they filled Ranger Stadium with 40,000 fans. Not all of them wore masks. Some of them did, some of them didn't. There was no large outbreak. Another statistic, in the state of New Hampshire with 1.2 or 1.3 million people, does anybody know how many kids under the age of 30, and I use the term kids liberally, do you know how many have passed away from COVID? I know that's a terrible thing to think about, but the answer is 0. There's been no kids who have passed away under the age of 30 in the state of New Hampshire. So to me, they're in far more danger wearing these dirty, sweaty, old masks. And believe me, my granddaughter is playing a very strenuous position. She is a pitcher on the softball team, and a damn good one. And we can be very proud of our kids because they're undefeated. But to force her to wear a mask all during a softball game is putting her in far more danger than the minuscule, and I emphasize the minuscule risk of catching COVID outside playing a sport. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate the opportunity.
And Rich, just so you're aware, towards the end of our meeting, it's been added, there's going to be discussion on wearing masks in athletics.
Okay, I appreciate that. I have been very, I've been very appreciative of all the work that you folks have done through this whole crisis. And I hope that, you know, here near the end, that you'll step up and do the right thing.
Thank you, Rich.
Any other community input, Mike?
There's nobody else here.
Okay.
It's nice to have community input.
Yeah.
Might be
It
a
worked.
record.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. That brings us to correspondence.
Yep, there were two correspondents, unless I missed one. The first was from Brian Dodge, and what he did is he forwarded a chain of emails, went back and forth with Corey and I think some with Mike. And in a nutshell, he's questioning how we go about taking care of monies that are raised through fundraisers. And it's for his two sons who did fundraising for their 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., which was canceled. They sold cookies and donuts, I believe.
So
And it was explained to him that the monies follow him to the next school, as they do all the kids that were going to 8th grade. And I know that happens from GMS to LMS, from LMS to CHS. And he's got all kinds of questions as far as the accounting of that. And I know Corey's provided him with all that information. And really, basically, that's it, that the accountants, there's a certain process we have to follow for those monies. And they'll be in high school for another 3 years. And those monies will just keep following them through the course of their years. The second correspondent we had came today from Melissa Rakely. And her concern is similar to what our discussion just was. Number one, she's concerned at GMS that the kids are playing outside and during recess with masks on, and it's getting warmer and warmer. And she's concerned that children may end up like just fainting because of overexertion and heat. And then she's also concerned with athletes in both LMS and CHS.
Preparing for summer, and for our new board member, meetings in the summer are not as frequent. So typically the board will shift some responsibility over to me and to Corey so that we're able to make sure we can be timely with the work that we need to get accomplished. So the first topic that I want to bring up is the authority to sign. And basically this grants to me and Corey the ability to sign contracts, business forms, or grants on behalf of the school board. So if we have a timeline that we need to meet, this sort of grants us the authority to take action on it. And there is suggested language for a motion that would satisfy this task. And frankly, it's the same language that we use each summer. So
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent and business administrator to sign all Office of Business Management forms, all contracts, and all grants on behalf of the Litchfield School Board.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 500.
thank you for that. The second is the authority for the superintendent to offer contracts to people. So actually, if you look at Ed Jobs or any of the sites right now, or look at our own open positions, everybody is sort of in the scramble to hire the best person that we can. I can tell you that I had a really good candidate in my office. This is after going through a vetting process with our people. She was by far the person that we wanted to hire, sat down. I made a tentative offer and wanted to have her in front of the board tonight. And she said, let me have 24 hours to think about it, which is totally fair. I said, absolutely. Here's my card. Give me an email tomorrow. I got back, hey, I need another day. Never a good sign. And the next day we got, I've actually taken a position in another district. So the problem is it's a very thin pool. She was a very well qualified candidate who I think we got beat out on money. And now we're back to the drawing board, which is empty when you go back to the drawing board. So we're going to do our best to try to get somebody. So this authority to hire allows us to be able to do that without waiting for the board action, especially when districts are all scrambling for the same pool, the same limited pool. So again, this is something that we've done each year.
Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to offer contracts to new hires from June 17th to August 30th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 500.
Excellent. Thank you for that also.
Mhm.
And then the last item is the retirement tea. So this is one of those fun events. We will be having our retiree tea tomorrow afternoon. That will be at Campbell. We're going to be in the lawn right outside the SAU office. So if you look out my office window, that's where the event will be, on the lawn. We are encouraging masks. However, there will be tea and scones. So I suspect at some point people will have to take their masks down to eat and drink. But we will be there on the outside field. Because we did not do it last year, we've invited back retirees from 2020. And then, of course, we have the retirees from 2021. So it's a nice event. It really is the board and the district's opportunity to recognize the employees who have put in. If you add up the number of years, it's a pretty significant number, easily in the triple digits. And so, this is that opportunity to make sure that they are recognized for the time that they put in for our students. So Tina, as board chair, is on the agenda to offer a few comments. So
Surprise. I didn't know that.
your comments are,
Very
you could do it right
limited.
now if I sprung it on you.
All
I
right.
mean, you're really acknowledging and thanking people.
All right.
The principals have the responsibility of being a little bit more specific
Oh,
about
okay.
the individual.
I'll keep it very,
So,
very brief.
yes,
say
I
that
told
all the
Tom he
time.
has 1 minute,
For
so
the
he
retiree.
will keep it fairly brief for us. But that tea is at 3:30. We'll probably start with presentations close to 4, and wrap it up probably within an hour. So,
Okay.
any
Sounds good.
questions or?
BYO chair.
We debated that, but what Dave found for us is that there were a bunch of chairs like these with a sled base on them, because we didn't want chair legs poking
Yeah,
in the
right,
grass and tipping
right.
somebody over. So we've got, I want to
yeah.
say there's 50 or 60 chairs. They'll be
Oh,
set
wow.
up out there. So folks will have chairs to,
Garden party attire, I assume, with the big floppy hats and the
like a Kentucky Derby.
yeah
Yeah,
Juleps.
mid jumps.
I like it.
All right.
I will say that we looked everywhere on where to have this outdoors. That is a shady piece of the lawn, and it's going to be 80 something tomorrow. So we were like, okay, that's the place to be. The sun's not beating down on somebody who has come back to be recognized. So
Great.
anyway, it should be a nice setting.
Sounds good. Hope to see you all there. School board comments.
I actually have one. I don't know if it falls on the comments or not. Actually, two. The first is, I'm just curious as to if we had any discussion of the Wednesday before the last day of school, as to whether or not we're going to be an early release.
So we announced in newsletters a while ago, and I'll remind parents of this, that is a full day Wednesday, because Thursday is a half a day. So we're not doing a half a day to plan for a half a day. So
I was hoping
we're just going to shift the half day that week to Thursday and have a full day on
So
Wednesday.
the 16th is a full day, the 17th is a half day?
Yeah, last day
17th.
is always a half day.
Yeah.
No, but that's just at GMS and LMS. CHS doesn't have a half day because that's competency recovery.
They're following their competency recovery schedule.
Got it.
But it's but the buses that week, Corey, we need to make sure the bus company has this info, are going to run on a regular full day schedule Wednesday and a half day schedule on Thursday.
Then one of just little thing that's actually for Corey, because I've been noticing on the buses, there's at least one bus that in the back doesn't have a number. So this is just like little thing, but there are some that have the number on the bumper and it's really hard to see. There are others that have the number just above the bumper in yellow, which is real easy to see.
Okay.
And that was the whole idea, like having numbers so you can identify the bus really quick.
I'll have to see if they're magnetic or not.
But I'm
The
pretty
one
sure
that
they are.
doesn't have a number on the back of it is probably the spare. That's held for us. They're probably using that while the other
No,
ones
I
in
think it was
service.
bus number 6 because I saw it on the side, but I didn't see it on the back. I think it was 6.
I can.
But just to have them look, but it's just, some of them have, like I said, if you look on the back of some of the buses, you can, the number just jumps out at
Yep.
you and other ones don't.
I'll reach out to them.
I didn't even notice their numbers on the back.
All right, thank you. That will bring us to general business, public minutes from May 5th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a
public
motion
minutes?
to approve the minutes from May 5th, 2021.
Thank you. I'll
I'll
second. Oh, one of us will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Minutes are approved 500. That brings us to Mr. Lechleiter's principal's report.
Good evening, everyone. Few things on the agenda tonight from the middle school. First of all, I just want to first thank you, Kathy, for hanging in there. I think I told Kathy, oh, you'll be on around 5:15, 5:20. Thank you, Kathy. I think I did that last time with Robin, if I remember right. But I just want to first we're not back to normal, but the last month or so, 6 weeks, there's just been a lot of just neat events at the middle school. We had a pep rally, the student council did an amazing race thing that was sort of a virtual thing, but really fun. We had good involvement with staff and students. Robotics has been competing and doing very well. They've had in-person competitions, which has been great. Thank you, Ms. Corbeil and Ms. Chu. And so just a lot. And then in the report this month, the New Hampshire, or for us, New Hampshire, but NELMS recognizes New Hampshire Scholars. And we have 2 students, Nathan Blaze and Piper Odom, who are being recognized. So I just wanted to recognize that. It is a virtual event, but they didn't do the event last year. So just little things like that are just bringing a little bit more of a sense of normalcy to the end of the year. Bill talking about the graduation. I'll talk a little bit about some of our end of year events at the end of the report tonight. But just a lot of good community stuff. And we're building up to, those last couple of weeks of celebrations of our students and the great year they've had despite all these challenges. So with that being said, one of the things that we've been doing is performance tasks and assessments this year. And I put it in the report that Mr. Momney had done a cardboard arcade. If you ever have a chance to check it out on YouTube, there's this kid that created a cardboard arcade. It was a viral thing on YouTube. And I showed the staff that a couple of years ago. Well, Eric took a kind of a spin to that in Tech Ed STEAM class. They made cardboard arcade items, very creative, very innovative, and they did a day of some of the activities. I have to say I didn't win a single one of those against a kid. But
Pictures are
anyway,
amazing.
it was just well thought out, and students were very proud of their work. So it was really, really neat to see. And along those same lines, Kathy Sidlow, a few years back, started Entrepreneur Day. I think Shark Tank was kind of the catalyst maybe for some of the thinking behind this, but kind of that, and I'll talk a little bit later about some of those portrait of learner characteristics that we're looking for in our students. And I just think Entrepreneur Day really encapsulates all of that, both performance assessment, but just the innovation, the creativity. It's also part of an economics unit that Kathy does with grade 6. So I'm going to present my screen. It's a moment of truth here. And hopefully you can see. Okay. So yes, we are the LMS links. Entrepreneur Day. So I don't want to steal all of Kathy's thunder, but I will just sort of introduce the idea. So it's a culmination of their study of their economic unit. And students have a lot of freedom in terms of how they go about this project. As I said, they become entrepreneurs, they design products, and then they market and sell them. And, you know, the tough world of business comes into play there. Some kids every year are very surprised their products don't sell as well. Maybe it's a marketing thing, maybe it's a price thing. And then others, they just go bananas and they sell out within like 15 minutes. So, Kathy, can you just talk a little bit about what the unit involves and what Entrepreneur Day is all about?
Well, the unit involves I've done a lot of about 65 vocabulary words that we started out with. And we've done the law of supply and demand. We've done, I didn't really prepare anything because I thought I was just going to answer questions. But what I have done for the past, we've done it in the cafeteria, and the students have been able to have the parents in. And I just started that a couple of years ago, which I realized, I don't know why I didn't do it many years ago, because the parents come in with lots of money and they spend a lot of money. And that's one of the things I'm a little disappointed in, but I do want to thank Tom and Martha for allowing us to do this year, because it definitely has taken a new twist and we've had to follow a lot of protocol. But I am thrilled for this 6th grade. This group, as I have told them on many occasions, it's the best group. I wouldn't want to be in a pandemic with any other group. And they've really taken to it and they're excited about it. We're a little disappointed we can't have parents, but we understand. So I've done, anything and everything you can possibly think of that has to do with economics, macroeconomics, microeconomics at a very basic level. And then we, as Tom said, we culminate the whole activity by actually producing and selling. I do put some restrictions on it because obviously there's only 5th, 7th, and 8th graders that are allowed to come now. So everything has to be $1. And I tell them and I show them lots of other products that kids have made. Like we had one student a few years ago that took a bunch of record albums in their basement, and he cooked it in the oven, of course, with the help of his mom, and he made all kinds of bowls and pencil holders. And we talk a lot about there were no overhead expenses, there were no materials that he had to buy, so he made pure profit. So we talk a lot about that, but it has definitely taken on a leg of its own. And I do hope that I can ask the people on the school board that are on the moms and dads pages, I'm not on any of those, if they could just advertise for us, because we need the 5th, 7th, and 8th graders to bring money, because they're the only ones that this year will be buying the product. So we're a little limited this year with consumers, but there's some products that we've had in the past. Some kids take on, as you can see in the middle picture there, that student decided to take all their proceeds and bring them up to the animal shelter. And some kids are really, really creative, and a lot goes into it. As you can see the presentation, I don't just grade on the product, I grade on the presentation and how they're marketing it. Some kids, not a lot, but will make commercials and put their Chromebooks at their station. And it has become a really exciting day for the 6th graders. And I can't thank Mr. Leckleiter enough for allowing us to do it, because I know I've been hearing a lot of talk today about masks, and not one complaint, I can tell you, in all this year, not one complaint. These kids do not complain about these masks, and they've worn them, and and they sit in these hard chairs. We don't do a lot of getting up and moving around anymore, because obviously there's so many restrictions, but I can't thank you enough for allowing us to have some fun at the end of the year. So
that was great, Kathy. Thank you. And
Did you say that was 5th and 7th grade? No.
So
8th
actually
and
what-
8th grade? No, 8th.
no,
All the
5th,
grades
5th,
will
yeah,
come.
5th, 7th, and 8th come, and
Oh, okay.
and also even the 6th graders. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, but they walk around too at some point.
yes.
They have an
But,
opportunity.
and I want to thank the whole school, but the 8th grade social studies, 7th grade social studies, and 5th grade social studies teachers have come up with a schedule. So we will walk through, and we're doing it in guest groups. So the rooms will only have like 15 students in them at a time. And we have a whole schedule of how they'll walk through, and we're really being very sensitive to the protocol that has been set up for the
26.
26?
Yeah.
26.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kathy. Did you have anything else, or did that cover it?
That's great. And I do hope that if you could, we were trying really hard to advertise. So if maybe those moms could get out on the moms page and just remind their students, it's next Wednesday, May 26th. If your 5th, 7th, and 8th graders could bring money, there's lots and lots of Father's Day gifts. There's lots of gifts for their dogs. There's lots of gifts for themselves, lots of great products. So thank you, everybody. And I shall see you, Mr. Leckleiter, tomorrow.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Right.
That's awesome.
I'm glad you're able to still do that. That was a big
I know.
highlight of 6th grade for
Yeah.
my
Definitely
students.
was, yeah.
And I know for a lot of other
It
students.
is a great event, and
Yeah.
if there's a teacher and a team that's going to make it work with all the guidelines and all you have to think about, they've definitely uncovered every
So they have to be 3
pebble.
feet apart
So-
at a table.
What's that?
They're gonna have to be 3 feet apart.
They're going to
through.
space it all the way down the hallway
Oh,
through the
perfect.
classrooms.
Awesome.
So it'll be.
Oh, good. I just
Yeah.
pictured 15 kids in a room.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hate to be last in line. There'd be no money left by the time
No,
you get
this-
down there.
The good stuff's gone in the first half hour.
It's good fun.
Yeah, there was a kid last year. I forget what the product was, but within 10 minutes, he had a list of
Yeah.
a waiting list.
Orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So- Okay, I'm going to move into, as you know, the portable classrooms are coming into the middle school next year. So I wanted to give you an overview of what the space is going to look like for next year. You should have a map that was sent out by Michelle today that is
Yep.
color coded
Mhm.
and
That was
went
very
a little
helpful,
bit more
thank you.
tech than
Yeah.
our highlighter. So if you look at the map, you're going to see 6 different sort of categories in the key: grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, unified arts, and special services and supports. So as you go through, just in general, the goal, one of the goals is always to, and we're not exactly laid out at the middle school, the building in pods, but to have sort of pod areas for the grade levels so students aren't traveling all over the building. Another one is to have unified arts areas, and by nature, the way the building is set up, the UAs are pocketed. So the red is the UAs. So you can see sort of a pocket around 9, 10, and 15, and then another pocket toward the front of the building where the music classes are. But having those, located somewhere near each other so kids aren't traveling all over the place for those. And then support and special services is a key area and ever changing. So the needs of our students obviously changing. And so we really have to look at our programming. We have to look at what we need to provide students in services and supports, and make sure that space is more than adequate. And so I would just go down the list. I'll start with grade 5. So you can see the purple. Grade 5, the plan will be in 24, 25, 26, and 27. Actually, I'm going to put this. You can see that on the screen. So 24, 25, 26, 27. And those are currently 7th grade classrooms over there for the most part. So those will slide over to 12, 13, 14, that hallway. So see where grade 5 is. Grade 6 stays in that line from 20 to 23. Grade 7, for the most part, as I just said, becomes 12, 13, 14, and 17. 28 that's the one exception. It's a little bit around the corner, but in the general same area, will also be 7th grade. That'll be social studies over there. And then grade 8, for the most part, stays where they are, 6, 7, 8, 2, with the exception of Spanish now comes over to the 8th grade hallway, which is a good thing in terms of, again, trying to keep pod grade level areas. And Spanish and Lit Tech will share room 5 and then go out in those rooms 6, 7, 8, and 2 for other classes when those classrooms aren't being used. UAs pretty much are where they are, with the exception of health goes from room 26 to room 1. 9, 10, and 15. 15 is the art room, 10 is the fax room, 9 is the tech ed STEAM room. Room 4 is computer literacy, computer science, the music, and this music room is obviously the band chorus music program, in addition to the stage in front of that, the gym PE. In health class, they have quite a few materials. She does CPR and some other units that involve materials. So even though room 1 is a smaller room, we feel it'll be adequate for the health classes needs. And then as far as special services go, so room 16 is currently S3, and that's a specific program to our students who have the most intensive needs in the building. S3 also uses an office area in between 16 and 1. That's been the case for quite a while, and that's student space, not office space. It's student space there. The speech room is adjacent there to that office, right off 16. And then when you go over to the media center, there are 3 office areas off of the media center. One will become the social worker's office. One will become our testing area. It's also going to be a spillover space for any other special ed needs. And then our school psychologist is also currently in that office, indicated off of the media center. And then staying with the blue, when you go over to 11 and 11A, 11 will be our specialists reading and math, who don't necessarily do all of their services in room 11. So they can go out as well. So that room will not always necessarily need to be used every single period, which will then become other spillover space for special ed. And 11A will become mainly an office space for the case managers, the special ed teachers, to have a confidential private area to do their work, which involves, as you would expect, some of that confidential space that they need. So that's the layout. Do you have any questions on any of that?
Thank you for making it visual. I just couldn't visualize. I don't know what the rooms are. So,
Yeah.
how many room changes are you going to have at the end of the year?
Well, yeah. So quite a few. So obviously the portable classes are going away. They're coming in. But 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 12, 13, 1, and then social worker's office, 11A, 11. There's a lot of dominoes.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of dominoes. So, and
Maybe,
Dave Rock-
maybe some volunteers could help if you need help.
I don't
Yeah.
think our
It's gonna be a lot
insurance
of
would cover
purging.
that.
Oh, our
A lot
insurance
of
would
purging.
not.
Yeah, a lot of purging.
Yeah.
We've had meetings about this, particularly around the portables, and just there's such a domino. Dave Ross has been great in terms of just the lineup that has to happen, that needs to really start now with this, and then the utilities of the portables and just all of it, and then that creates the domino in the building. So he's been great, and Mike's been facilitating these meetings with us to just keep the schedule. And the teams, it is a lot on the 5th grade team. They've been great, and they understand the schedule, the timeline, and we're giving them the support that they need and helping answer questions as it goes. And purging is a big part of it. It is. So.
Are you ready for me, Tom?
Yes, Liz.
Okay. I have a caseload of 15 kids, and today I looked, and I know we have 18% special ed, somewhere around there. I have 15 kids on my caseload. 13 of them I have to read them their tests.
Yeah.
Where are these teachers going to read their kids these tests if they don't have a designated space?
Okay. So right now, if you look at, let's go down the line from 20 to 23. That's sixth grade space.
Okay, I'm ready.
Now,
Read.
our master schedule is not 100% done. We're actually
understandable.
making some significant potential tweaks to it. But just in terms of our schedule, I'll just go with our similar schedule now. If we're in 20 to 23, there's always going to be an open classroom because the teachers aren't teaching every single period. So the way the schedule offsets, there's an open classroom. So in a case like an accommodation like that, it really depends on what the IEP is for. So if it literally is an independent space of any other person and it's a one-on-one space, if a classroom is open and there's no one else in there, we'll use that space.
And the other teachers are open to that.
Well, that's actually another point I wanted to make tonight. So no one has a deed to these rooms. These are student spaces. All of these are
Absolutely.
student spaces. And so even though like Shay Bishop may be the math teacher for the seventh grade team and her desk and her classes are in that, whatever that room is, room 12 next year, 13. It's not Shay Bishop's room. It's a classroom that will be used every single period of the day. And that'll be the case across the board. So as we build our master schedule, as we look at room placement, it's essential that we have that space for, again, there's three things for special ed. There's de-escalation space.
Right.
There's accommodations, like you're saying, in terms of
De-escalation is at S3 next to 16.
So there's a couple places for de-escalation. There's in between 1 and 16, that office I mentioned. That's a space that we use called the zone, but that's a space that we use. The school psychologist is very integral in de-escalation. So her office is oftentimes used, as is the social worker. So her office often is used for de-escalation.
Yep.
And then we have some other spaces like the testing space, the speech space. We do have 11A, even though it's office space for case managers, that in the event of a de-escalation that we don't have, those other spaces, we can use that as well. So de-escalation is one thing. Accommodations, as you're suggesting, really depending on the IEP and the individualized need of the student. Some of those are group readings, right? So
That's something you can't do in the back of a classroom.
Read a test to read to them. If we have that open classroom, they can do that in an open classroom. Some of that is individual, where they really need quiet, confidential space.
Right.
Some of those spaces I just mentioned can also be used for things like that. So that's the second thing. And then the other is cores and enrichment. Core and enrichment is when we really it's a class taught by the case manager, supported by the paraprofessionals. And we're really looking for, the core is really, the goal is to go after the goals and IEPs and the objectives in the IEP. Those are, even right now, even with some of the space we have for special ed, we're still using classroom space for those cores and
Isn't that all at the
best
same
classes.
time though? Or do they have them at different
No,
periods?
it depends on the
Is that
the grade level.
That's not in lieu of a unified arts class. That's their study period, best, or whatever it's called.
Core is one of their UAs. So if an
Okay,
identified student, and again, this is all IEP driven. So
Absolutely, yeah.
it's not across the board that every IEP student has a core. Most have cores.
So
but not
they're
every
gonna,
single one.
so they might be in the empty room while the other class is at a UA. So where would those other kids go if they
If
need
they're
a
in a
test
UA
read to them?
So the special ed kids for the core class
Yep.
will be assigned to a classroom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and we've done that for many years. We've had the luxury the last couple of years to actually have 1 in 24 to do that.
Yeah.
But by and large, and Devin and I talked today about this.
Okay.
We've done this in classrooms for a long time, and it is a class. And I mean, the other thing is, and again, Devin and I talked about this as well. When it comes to the core class specifically, we really want an integrated model where kids are not going off to a room just for the special ed. Hey, you're just going over here.
Oh, I'm
all
not
the way
worried
through.
about that.
So we really
Please
want
respect restrictive environment. I'm more worried that the kids, if Brian has a social studies test, where am I going to take him to read him the test, not in the back of the room, disturbing someone like Elizabeth who needs complete silence and quiet.
No, we would never do an accommodation like that in the
Okay.
classroom around other students. That would be really specifically IEP driven, and it would be in a space that is dictated really by what the IEP requires. So like I said, it could be one of those quieter office areas. It could be an empty classroom if there's no one else in there. It could be an empty classroom.
Because when I was working at Campbell, there were times that I would have to search around for an empty room when room 248 was full, because these kids deserve to have the extra time, whatever, for their testing. I'm just worried that this is a tiny, tiny space and it's going to have 3 desks in it. And what's the reading specialist next door? And I'm not nitpicking. I couldn't do my job in a room this big. And I'm in 5 classes.
They're
a day.
not, just to be clear,
Yeah.
they're not working with students
in there.
in 11A. That's their workspace. That's
Where
their
their
desk.
desks are.
That's their paperwork. That's all their workspace. And then they're going out to
Classes all day.
Yeah, to other areas for their.
And they will have an assigned room for their core class to meet their IEP needs.
What we also do is with their master schedule is we create a matrix really for the case managers. So, and then we have a meeting around where all the empty spaces are.
That would be awesome.
Empty spaces. They won't be empty spaces, but that way we
No,
can
it's going to
schedule.
be tight. I get
Because
it.
IEPs are all, as you know, they're always changing right up to the end
Absolutely.
of the summer. So once we match up the IEPs with the space and that puzzle comes together. So it will come together.
You promised me that those paras and teachers will have, if you're taking a test in science, you're going to go to Miss Bishop.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Go to the
Tom,
gym.
correct my math if I'm off on this, but
Yep.
if you look at room 20 through 27, right, which is the 6th grade followed by the 5th grade classrooms for next year, they're on an 8-period day. The teachers teach 4 core courses
Yep.
plus a BEST,
Yep.
which means they're teaching 5 out of 8, which means their room is available 3 out of 8.
Correct.
And so, even if you take away 2 core classes that are meeting during one of the UAs, a 5th grade core and a 6th grade core, because you have
Yep.
1, correct?
Yep.
That means 22 periods a day, there's an empty room, which means there's a lot of space for you to take a kid or to go do something or to do whatever, just in that area.
That helps to
right?
put it into perspective.
So if you
Yeah.
put that in that kind of
Right.
perspective, now it's a little bit of a game. Like, okay, it's 3rd block and it's 5th grade, and you got to look at the chart to figure out where that is.
I think
But
that
you're not
they will
walking
know.
around the room searching, or the building searching
Yeah.
either.
I will say from a case manager's perspective, they have more than 1 core. So the student only has 1 core, but the case manager has more than 1 core. So we have case managers right now with like 4 cores during the day, or 3 cores during the day. So that means 3 periods of the day that we need core space for those kids, even though the kid only has it once. So in terms of space, it does require a little more space than
Okay.
just the 1 a day per grade level, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
know
I
this
do.
is-
I just want, do the other teachers know there'll be teachers coming and going from their classrooms? I mean, I don't care.
You're
but
already
I know
doing that, Tom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Are
we
they?
are. And
You're already doing
again, and I said this to the staff at the beginning, that it's
It's how it's going to
the
work.
reality.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. These are not any one person's, these are not adult spaces, they're student spaces. And every period of the day, we're going to be using the spaces. That's the reality.
That is the
So,
reality. And yeah, I get it.
The puzzle will come together.
Okay.
And again, as far as special services go, it's that matching of the IEP needs versus the space needs and bringing that together. And we do it every year. But I understand your question, Liz. Absolutely. We're always thinking about that. In middle school, what we see is, and you know this probably, is that there's this stigma sometimes around the special ed.
Absolutely.
And that can become a very big thing as they go through, as they become more self-aware, as they go through
Absolutely.
the middle school. So we're very sensitive to that, which is why I think trying to do these services and supports in their grade level area, not with a bunch of other kids, but so they're not trekking over to, I'm going to go get my special ed services over way on the other end of the building versus their home base-ish.
And they're
kind of
not
area.
going during UA.
That's-
Everyone
that's the
goes
goal,
in different
you know.
directions that nobody knows someone's
Right.
going to get there. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yes,
that's the goal.
absolutely. And
So-
I think that's awesome. Thank you. All
Yeah,
right.
and as we go through, I can report back and give you updates on what that would look like.
I guess
It'll
I'm
just be for a
spoiled.
few years until we get a new GMS.
Okay.
5th grade will be out of there and you'll have all kinds of room.
Okay.
Any other questions on space? Okay, I'm going to finish with, I know the board has been working on goals, and our team at the middle school this year has talked a lot about a lot of different things, including grading and reporting, and a lot of other topics. And if you ever look at our handbook, we actually have our mission statement in there. We have our values and our vision. You hear the do your best mantra. And it's been probably about 5 or 6 years since we really dug into our mission, our vision, our values and our vision. And so, to be honest, we copy and paste it, and we've been doing that for a few years. And so we're going to go backward a little bit and look at really what we have, what are we, what is our purpose, and then go forward from there. And it lines up in perfect timing with the board goals that you've been developing. So I'm going to present this slide, which is, well, it all starts with the links, of course. Do your best. And then from there, the portrait of the learner. So I've seen a little bit of that in some of the goal documents, just in terms of what is the focus of skills that we're trying to really go after when we build units and when we instruct students in the classroom: perseverance and adaptability, integrity, communication, and critical thinking. And so as we work through some of our mission and our values and our vision, these 4 pillars really are important, that we are coming back to these skills and these characteristics that we want in our learners, because this is what it's all about. Mission, vision, values, goals. Why do we exist? What do we want to become? How will we behave? And what really are the behaviors? So do your best when you think about it. Believing, extending, showing, and taking are all behaviors. They're all active words, and we did that for a reason. But we want to go back and look at that, and then how will that line up with the goals? So when we look at mission, why do we exist? Why are we here? Facebook talks about giving people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. I linked in some corporate samples because really what we want is to be as succinct as we can, get to the point. Everyone, I think, in our community knows "do your best" is our mantra, but really, how does that connect with everything else that we're doing? And do we need to relook at some of that language? Our vision: what do we want to become? What do we want LMS to be? And this is the dream schools are made of, and the dreams that companies are made of. So, for example, Ford Motor Company to become the world's leading consumer company for automotive products and services, and just having that focus around vision. And so as we work through this, really narrowing in on specifically what is our vision and what is the focus as it relates to that, and sticking to that. So we're not trying to do 10 other things, that we're really keeping a laser focus on what that vision is. And then our values, as I said, really behaviors. Just an example there: Facebook, focus, move fast, be bold, be open, build social value. It's about behaviors. And as we build our mission or relook at our vision, our mission and our vision, then we talk about how are we going to act? What are we going to do to bring that forward? And then that will be that will end up in our goal document around specifically what steps will be taken and when. And I did get a peek at the goal document. I think it's very exciting the way that reads, in terms of there's a lot of room for our buildings to really get specific around the goals. So I'm excited to piggyback off of what has already been created there. So this is just an overview, sort of laying out the work. But our leadership team, like I say, we've been having a lot of conversations around a lot of different things that really, by revisiting and focusing on our mission, vision, and values, I think will bring a thread to all the work that we're doing, and end up in a goal document that'll be focused. Questions?
I just have one comment.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to see that the old sign is gone.
He was He was cutting that up.
He was sawing it for a day or two.
Oh.
He was sawing. I don't think he must have gone through 20 blades. I mean, he was out there. There was sparks flying. I thought there might be. I was going to
Must
call
have
the
been a
fire
fun
department.
job.
Blood coming for backup out there. He was out there for a good. Yeah, he was there for a while. But we had said the end of April, and then I got an email. I can't remember who it was from the Historical Society. We're coming. Please don't throw the sign away. And sure enough, I never thought. I mean, that sign it's a big with the concrete and everything, unbelievable. But yeah, they were out there, and so thank you, Litchfield Historical Society, for grabbing that sign. Looking forward to seeing it at the Memorial Day Parade.
Yeah.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Just quickly on the sign. So one of the pieces that we need to button up is the installation of the new sign. So we have met with the contractor about that. Our planning is to sort of, as you're coming in McElwain, to sort of have the sign right there on the lawn. So you're looking at it as you drive in. You know, where it was in front of the bus loop, and parents really never saw it because you went up behind the school, dropped your kid off. We really want to have it in a location that it's visible to parents.
So there's not a location on Pinecrest that can go?
So we've talked with some of the landowners along Pinecrest, but that's while having somebody willing to take a sign on their lawn. So really, unfortunately that would make it visible to the town. But our second best alternative is at least more visible to parents who are pulling in.
Can we put something underneath the green sign that says like middle school with an arrow?
There already
Is
is.
there?
Do you know, I asked the same thing.
Dave
Under
took a
the
picture and
street
sent it to me. There's a sign that says middle school under McElwain.
Yeah.
I must have blanked it out for the past
I have
12
too,
years.
because I said, can't we do that? And then Dave sent me a picture. We've already done it. And I'm like,
It's because we're used to beautiful
It's very
white
efficient.
signs
He should
now
have
from
just taken
Jason
credit
Brennan.
for it.
Well, maybe he could do one. Yeah.
I'm just thankful we have GPS now. 'Cause before,
Yeah,
I was trying to get someone in
right.
middle school, trying to describe how to get there. And we're at the end of a dead end, and when you come see a parking lot.
Go through the reresidential
beautiful
neighborhood.
school.
And
Yeah. I'm going to see that
Yeah.
every single time I go by.
Any other questions or comments for Tom?
No.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you need Tom to stay for anything else?
he is always welcome,
Of course you are, Tom.
but I think his part of the
I
agenda is
personally
over.
would scoot to him.
I'll tune in on YouTube.
Get out while you
Sure you
can.
will.
Yeah, there's a lot to go.
I'm
Thanks,
sure there's a
Tom.
baseball
We don't
game
have
for you
anybody
to
else
watch
joining
somewhere.
that call, right?
Never,
We don't
never.
need this feed anymore, right?
I
There's
have no
nobody else
idea.
joining.
I don't think.
Gonna end it.
That's not the community. input.
It's not the community
Okay,
one, so I'll save that. Yep.
Great.
And I'll
Okay, Corey, you're
Disengage
up
from-
with the business administrator report.
All right. Just to follow up on, we're talking about the sign. There's some things that need to be completed in terms of the canopy, one of which being the landscaping around there. We've been in contact with the contractor. We've signed off on the quote for the landscaping work to be done. I reached out to Jeff Kelly, who is the owner of Solid Roots today, to find a date, and he's going to get back to me within the next couple of days to let me know exactly when that work's going to be done. In terms of the energy efficiency project, the windows have been ordered. So we're hoping that, I forget exactly what the time frame was they gave us for receipt. But those have been ordered. They came in $36,000 less than previously thought. However, the installation will also be a piece of that cost as it comes in. North Branch is doing bidding walkthroughs with subcontractors from their end starting this Friday. So we'll have an idea of who's going to be working electrical and mechanical. As Tommy mentioned, the portables are going to be removed. We've notified Schiavi that they'll be available as of July 1st. We have a punch list that we've been going through, meeting on a weekly basis to go through to make sure everything stays on track, and we're ready to go as of July 1st. The financials, I sent a full set of financials as of last Friday. We're looking in pretty good shape. I do want to note that on the general fund financials, I have taken the subsidy that's going to have to be paid to food service into account as of April 30th. Right now, we're looking around $100,000. I've also provided for trust funds, the capital project is that where we are all as of April 30th, and the summary of the trust fund activity as of then. Tina had sent me an inquiry earlier today or yesterday regarding what we've spent in terms of federal funds. As of right now, the only funds that have been expended are the CARES ESSER 1, which was $56,500, and that was for the preliminary audit of our systems and the preliminary work that had to be done to correct some of those problems.
That was the ventilation and HVAC
Yes, that's correct.
or district wide.
Correct. And I've also provided a list of the year-end funding projects as of today. I'm still waiting on a couple of quotes from Dan Mitchell. Did bring something up regarding furniture for another kindergarten classroom should we need it. So he's going to provide quotes to that may be added, but I provided that for review so that as of next school board meeting on June 2nd, that we can review and have a vote to carry those balances forward.
Should be easy enough. We had that in the budget, 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yep. So that's what I have.
Corey, did you mention the roof at LMS?
The roof at LMS, that's looking to be out into the beginning of the school year in terms of being able to get the materials to do the roof. So the things that we hope to get done over the summer, it all comes down to the supply chain and whether we can get the materials in time or not. But we'll have a clearer picture as the walkthroughs take place when we get those vendor bids.
Can you replace the roof while school's in session?
Yes.
They can do the patchwork and a lot of the stuff during the summer that doesn't involve the rollout of the membrane.
Okay.
And then a lot of the work will be external to the building.
Okay.
So it would involve people on the roof, but it's not a loud process. You've got 8 inches of styrofoam
Right.
insulation on the roof, so that would deaden any sound. You're talking cranes on the lawn that are out of the way that can be putting materials up there, so it's doable. It's not ideal. The ideal thing is to hit it when summer starts, but
I guarantee it's gonna be a lot less noisy than that pounding was doing the
Right
water.
by the entrance, right?
Yeah.
But this was just, again, the roofers, it's getting the materials, and the companies that produce the materials have all sorts of supply chain backups. So it's par for the course of what you're hearing about the whole construction industry. So I just wanted the board and public to be aware that despite all good planning, now we're at the mercy of getting materials on site. It's not a labor issue, it's materials. So.
Great. Thanks, Corey.
So-
Go
I just
ahead.
have one question, because I know we had a discussion of this at one time. And that was doing work on the sidewalk in front of LMS. As far as getting away from the tripping hazards over there. And
We
we talked
need
about
to
doing
discuss-
that.
We did discuss that.
Remember that.
We'll have to bring that back up with David and Jeff Kelly.
I thought we had
from
that discussion, like when they did sidewalk going into the entranceway, they were gonna do that work at the same time.
Yep. And then they're at the mercy of the weather
Mm.
as it came to the end of that. So we'll make sure the next time we meet up with Jeff Kelly that we mention that, because that was part of the.
I believe
that
we got a
wanted to
quote
do.
for that, but it's the dominoes of the curbing, the road work. There's also, the bottom line is that the underground,
Drainage.
drainage system has failed. And so how much of that work you want to do before you get to digging up and replacing pipes? So we sort of put that a little bit on the back burner. I think that would probably end up being site work. In the perfect world, we're building a new school up on the hill and we're looking at all that parking lot, and that's the time to make sure that we do all the site work also. So
And that's all in the capital plan too, the parking lot,
I think
one
just
way or the other.
just about every single drainage pipe doesn't have a bottom to it anymore. They've all rotted out. And so, and that becomes a big problem because you could end up eroding away all the soil underneath. And that's how you end up with the caving in sinkholes.
A
So
lot of the materials that we would fix that with being PVC, that's another supply chain problem.
right.
So at this point, it may fall into part of the site work for a new GMS when that time comes.
Okay. Any other questions for Corey?
Oh, I do. Any news on the bleachers?
No, I have to, Dave, I had asked Dave to reach out to a general contractor that we work with quite
Okay.
a bit.
The outdoor bleachers, is that what you're
He
referring
is-
to?
That are on the ground, yeah.
And
Oh,
Dave
yeah.
is currently our daytime
Okay.
custodian
Yeah.
down at
Yeah.
LMS, so he's really struggled. So I'll reach out to the contractor myself.
Yeah, I just don't think it would be good to have them on the ground for graduation at all, and it'll look crappy. Pardon my,
I'll see if we can get him in for a meeting.
because I'm pretty sure there'll probably be grandparents in wheelchairs like there were, and you don't want anything in the way. Awesome, thank you.
Anything else for Corey? All right, that brings us to committee reports.
I don't think we've had any
I don't think
since
we've
the
had any
last meeting.
committees, have we?
I just leave it on there in case.
Yeah, that's all right. I was just trying to rack my brain. I know budget hasn't met yet.
And just to clarify, so facilities needs, which has been
Mhm.
a very active committee, will not be before the next board meeting. It'll be
Right.
the week
week
after,
after.
right? So we're going to break that out and we're going to meet at LMS because that's where our
Yeah.
work is going to be. So we'll be right there for those meetings going forward.
Will you make a note in that invitation just so that I remember to go to the right place?
Didn't I change
I
it
think we
already?
did, but let me just take a peek
Okay.
at it.
We can
So
send it, we can send it back out again.
Okay,
So you won't be going from meeting to meeting, which seems like a lot.
right. So we'll have a week in between
Mhm.
the facilities meeting and the board meeting.
so it is on Wednesday the 9th and it says Litchfield Middle School.
Okay.
So
We can,
And it really wasn't, I kind of liked the meeting flowing into the other. What I didn't like is action coming out of it didn't
Yeah.
allow time to digest. So,
Right.
um, you know, we'll have it at 3:30 to 5 as we have been. It'll just, then we'll have a week to digest material and get it out to the rest of the board.
It's listed at the middle school.
What's that?
It's listed as the middle school.
Middle
Okay.
school.
Do my best to remember where to go. Thank you. Let's see, that brings us to new business. We have some policies for reapproval. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey,
Oh.
I think I have nothing on that one.
Whoa, we're gonna fly through these.
You okay?
I'll make a motion
Sorry to
to.
disappoint you, Brian.
It's all right.
But
I'll
I
do
think
better
something's
next
coming up a
time.
little later on.
I'll make a motion to approve policy EEAE, EEAEA. I can't tell if they're E's or F's.
I thought it was an F.
EEAF, EFB, EI, and EIB.
I second?
Thank you. You're not gonna list them?
No. Because I can't tell the difference between F's and
Right?
E's.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All right. Next is a first reading of policy GCOB, employee exit interviews.
It's a queue.
It's a Q?
So
Oh, these underlines.
it's just because of the underline.
GCQB, employee exit interviews. Thank you for the correction, Mike.
I'll make a motion to approve as a first reading GCQB, employee exit interviews.
Second.
Great. Is this a new policy?
This is-
It is. So there are a lot of districts. We've been doing exit interviews.
Right.
I think it's an important part of practice. I think it's really good business to talk to your employees who are leaving. And on the superintendent thread the other day, somebody said, "Hey, we want to start doing exit interviews. Does anybody have a policy?" And 2 policies flowed through. And I said to Michelle, "These look pretty good. Let's
Yeah.
adapt them." The School Board Association no longer has a model policy about it. So this is sort of the best of what we saw in the policies that came along. But we're open to feedback. If there are things that you want to adjust or change about it, it'll just put into writing a practice that we've been following. So
I think it's a smart idea. I didn't have any questions or comments.
I just thought it was interesting. Just interesting that our first option is to sit down with them and have a one-on-one with them. But if they're not willing to do that, then we'll, send them a survey. Other places I've been, it's just been a survey. So I think that that's a nice touch.
I'll make motions made and seconded. Is that right? Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the first reading of GCQB, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Approved for first reading 500. Second reading for DKA.
I don't think there's a second readings. I thought we shelved them last time and we're going to come back because you wanted to present.
I think we read them as a first reading and then we shelved the second reading.
Correct.
Right. Well, you read it, you've already had a first reading of it, you voted on a first reading, and then it got revised.
We did. It had a couple changes though.
If you
added
want
some
to go
things.
back to another
Yeah.
first reading.
No, that's
up to
fine.
you.
I thought that we shelved these because we wanted to go back to payroll and they
We
had
did,
some
right,
input.
right.
Okay, I
And so
didn't
this,
realize we did a first.
Oh, I'm
second-
sorry, yeah, we
okay.
did do that.
Two separate policies. So
Yeah.
DKA was ready for a second read, and then we tapped the brakes on it.
Mhm.
And if you look at what's there, the strikeouts are the tweaks that we made. So we just realized that we really don't have a business and finance office. I think we all know what that means, but we're like, it's the school district office. That's who
Right.
does this, right? You'll notice that we took out the part-time and aspect of it. The other thing is we struck the reason why we have direct deposit. There's a variety of reasons why people have direct deposit. I don't know if the policy has to stipulate the why of it. So it's just a housekeeping part. Oh, and I'm sorry. And under the voluntary reductions, New Hampshire Retirement doesn't have the voluntary contributions any longer. That was a short-lived thing that was made available. It's not available currently, so we just struck that out and we relabeled the other options the way they actually are. So it's not a health savings account. It's a healthcare reimbursement account or a dependent care assistance account, which are your FSAs.
Okay.
So it's housekeeping. You can do it as a first or a second, I guess.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve as a second reading the policy DKA, payroll procedures.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. Then we have JLCD.
And that is on administering medication. And this is a second read, right, Michelle? We
Yeah,
did this
nothing
one.
has been changed since the last time we saw
Nothing
it.
has been changed, so.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to approve policy JLCD as a second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstain? 500. Then that brings us to class size reduction expendable trust fund.
Yep. And the link I livened up today. So basically, if you click that, it'll open up the spreadsheet that we had last meeting. I asked Dan to update it. So if you look at the bottom, we last left off with the May 5th numbers. Now we have May 18th numbers. I will point out that GMS has lost 5 students in the 2-week window.
Wow.
And I think part of this is just greater data. You know, we're hearing from parents. We sent that notice out saying, hey, let us know if you're coming.
Yep.
And I think that actually had 5 people say, well, we're not coming. And so, again, we're just a little bit closer. But take a look at what happened. It was a loss of 1 kindergartner. That's insignificant against the policy. We really still need the 5th class there. We did lose 2 first graders, stayed even in second, lost 1 in third, and 1 in fourth. Dan then typed the rest of the numbers and what he is suggesting. So our projection, this is our last October, what we thought was going to happen was that we would need 45454 in terms of teachers per grade for a total of 22. We now are at 54455. That's Dan's recommendation to you. And that is a +1. So it involves a shuffle and it involves adding 1. So what we're asking the board to do is consider utilizing the class size reduction expendable trust fund. I think the easiest way to think about that is that it's adding a kindergarten teacher because we were predicting 4 and we now feel that we need 5. His feeling is that we can make 4 teachers work in first grade, 4 teachers work in second grade, but he would like 5 teachers in third and fourth grade. And that involves actually a shift of a second grade teacher to the fourth grade, I think is where the number ends up being.
Oh, I see, because I see. So we already have 5 in third grade, so that would stay the same. And
And,
then fourth grade to reduce the class size from 23 to 18.
and we were originally predicting to take the second grade teacher down to first grade, but his feeling is that it's going to be a better use in the fourth grade.
Well,
So
the trigger number for first grade would be 83 anyway, just similar to third grade,
84.
trigger number is 84.
84.
And he was at 80. He's now at 78.
Right.
So he's feeling that he does not want to do that. And the trigger number in fourth grade is 97. But remember, that's also with the higher class size number. So he feels that that class overall is larger, and that's the best way to deploy that staff member.
Okay.
The action from the board is really to use the fund, right, to open up that. And then we're going to keep watching these numbers. They're going to keep evolving.
And just to clarify, we wouldn't request money from the trust fund until we know the amount that we need. So we would get,
Kindergarten class?
well, we would get a individual in place, and then we would know the actual cost for the year, and then we would.
Because it wouldn't necessarily be.
Right. And when do we vote on the fourth grade position?
Third.
No, it's a fourth.
It's add the fourth.
It's adding a fourth grade position.
I thought it was
So if we were at 4 teachers still for fourth grade, that would be 23.25. So it's just.
Which means
slightly-
23, and then one of the classes is 24.
It's interesting to have fresh eyes on something. So, Dan has said to me, he said, "Oh no, this chart is wrong." And I said, "What do you mean it's wrong? It's the chart the district's used for years." He said, "Well, technically, if you have 4 classes, you overload 3 of them. So the
Right.
majority of classes have 1 over the cap before you ever get to the trigger point." He says, "You're rounding up."
Right.
And I said, "Well, let me give you the history of the chart. I want to make sure I have this right." But the budget committee had developed that chart for the school board. We incorporated it into our policy. But in fact, he's not incorrect. You overload 3 classes before you ever pull the trigger.
That's
And
what happened in kindergarten.
Yep.
exactly. And so he's saying it really ought to be you should reduce that down.
Right. The trigger number should
and
be
I
the
said,
number.
They're gonna cut it if we add a fifth. I'm telling you right now, the budget committee will
It's
cut it.
already,
The thing is, our
budget's
numbers,
already
we're
approved.
not at the trigger point for fourth grade. Fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Right.
That's what Mike's saying, though, is that Dan is saying the trigger number should be lower. It should be as soon as a class size hits.
That's not the way we've done it.
Right.
Mike just gave that history.
and,
So
and
that means we're gonna need another second grade teacher if 3 more kids move in, and we're gonna need another
Right.
one if 4 more kids move into first grade. So we're setting a precedent.
Right. We're not at the point to have a fifth, fourth grade teacher.
I think 23 students at any
It
grade
doesn't matter
level.
what you think, Tina, at this point. It's what numbers we're at, and we go by our policy. Our policy is 23.
My son
Which
had 24.
4
in his
classes is
fourth
92.
class.
I mean, that's our
But
written
it's,
policy.
so if we're gonna do that for fourth grade, then we might as well ask for the first and second grade, if we're gonna break the policy.
I mean, but if you go by these numbers and you stick true to the way the policy is written, your extra teacher, not extra, that's the wrong way to put it. The teacher that was being reduced in second grade could become your kindergarten teacher.
Exactly,
And you're not tapping
That's-
into the trust fund at
exactly.
all.
unless we need it in August.
The question is, do we stand behind those numbers and the rounding that goes with it, right? Because what that means is at 92, his current number, every class has 23, correct? Am I doing the math right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I am. So you're literally, every class is on the line.
And one has 24.
Right.
And this has been,
Yes,
this happened
because
last
it's 20
August and
it was
happened
not
August
just crazy
before.
How often
First
this
grade.
happens?
This happens all the time and we never
insane.
made a change.
Well, it happened last year. We
It
were at-
happened,
Dan wanted to add another
Another-
first grade teacher.
and yeah,
We didn't need.
this happens every
The
year.
board decided he didn't need it. The administrator asked for it because he felt he needed it.
So there's a policy in place. Can that policy be changed?
It has been changed. We changed the kindergarten policy from 20 to 18 students.
So you have two things, I think, Heidi, and again,
Yeah.
I'm looking at my historian to make sure I get this right, but it was developed originally by the budget committee. We incorporated it because instead of having a policy and then a separate sheet of paper that had it, it's like just combine it and put
Right.
it into policy. The budget committee was frustrated when we lowered the kindergarten number. But
They were
it was,
frustrated before that.
well, but it was board prerogative because it is board policy it's your policy, right?
Because we had 21 and 22 kids in kindergarten.
Right.
But, you
Because
know,
nobody would budge on that number in this room in Rob. Because you said we were gonna stick to that, Mike. And I say we stick to this.
well, I guess the thing, what I would encourage the board to think about is if you're going to look at the policy and change and consider changing, I think you do that early in the year. But staring at the numbers and saying, now we want to change the policy and add as the numbers are bearing down is a little bit problematic. I think the rounding thing is it's an interesting point. I mean, you have 3 overloaded classes before you add. Is the board comfortable with that? If you do exactly the same thing off, let's see if I got this right, off 22.75, then when you hit the 4th one, you're at the cap. So that triggers the add.
Right.
But that's been
if we-
okay up until right now.
Yeah,
That was
and if-
okay last year.
Well,
That
the thing
was
is, if
okay
we
the
looked
year
at it that
before.
way last year, we'd have an extra first grade teacher right now that we don't need.
That's true.
Says who? Who says we don't need it?
Because there'd be
The first,
13
the
kids
first
in
grade
class.
teachers might disagree.
Oh, of course they will.
And
They'll probably want
Based on the
6.
class size standard, that's
How many kids would they have? How many kids are in first grade now?
And the thing is, these are our
Okay.
numbers. Look at the state numbers and see how high of a class size they should be.
I don't even. how
I'm
many
saying
kids are in
as
first
fresh eyes looking at this,
Yep.
I'm looking at class size guide 23, and we are going to have a class that has 24.
No, we're not.
Yes,
Yes, we are.
0.25.
Where?
Because
Fourth
the
grade.
0.25 is
We
one
have 92
student.
students. That's 23 per class.
I'm sorry, I thought Tara said it was 90.
23.25 per
Which is
class.
one
Are
student.
you doing 93 or 92? I think
93 was the number. Now it's 92.
Oh, so
yeah.
maybe.
So I
it's
think
even less. Hold
93
on.
is the one
92
class will be over.
divided by-
Okay, so if we get
90
one more student, we're
Right.
going to
So
have
yeah,
a class
92
over.
is exact.
Which was okay last
Right.
year.
If
for
you get 2
kindergarten.
more, you'll have 2 24s. If you get 3 more, you'll have 3 24s. You would have
It
to
was
get
okay for
4
kindergarten.
more in
And
order
it
to
triggers
trigger.
to get
I
it.
don't think it was okay for kindergarten, but I wasn't here. So I'm saying
Well,
I
I
don't.
was told that we have to stick to the trigger numbers. And I fought it, and that's why the number went down.
We got the same issue with second grade too,
But consistent with that change, Liz, we made that at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
It was part of the
Correct.
budget.
Right.
Like we made a policy decision without ever knowing what the impact was going to be of it. Although we probably could have predicted, but it wasn't based on, oh my gosh, that worries me. It was earlier.
So do we have money to add a first and second grade teacher if 4 kids move into each of those grades?
Well, in the expendable trust fund, we have 1 position. And it really, by the time you do salary and benefits, you can't stretch that. You can't,
It's 10, right?
yeah, there's no
So it's just one.
way to make that into more.
So at this point, we are not over the trigger number by any stretch of it, and we are not over it by even in a single classroom.
We are in kindergarten. You're over,
Kindergarten,
the
yeah.
trigger number is 76. You're over by 1. You can solve that by moving the second grade teacher that we've already acknowledged going to first, where it's not currently needed because the trigger number there is 84. So
Right.
you can move that teacher down to kindergarten,
Right.
maintain your staffing of 22 total teachers.
Mhm.
and wait to see what happens with the other numbers.
I can make an argument that the graders need a lower number than the fourth graders because they're harder to control. No offense to first grade parents.
Well, a lot of things come into play when you're talking about how many kids in a classroom. I mean, the classroom size, the classroom curriculum, the needs in the class, which is why I feel like it's important to defer to the administrator and their well, not necessarily defer, but to seriously consider the administrator and their recommendations for what's best for their students.
The one piece of, kind of the insider information is he knows the makeup. So
Right.
not all children are the same. And, when you have a couple of particular needs in a class, you can really, it adds up quickly. So it does vary, it's not just 92.
It's more than
who
numbers.
are the 92.
Right. It's more than just numbers.
What if 3 kids move away from third grade? Does that mean we take away one of their teachers? Move them to fourth grade?
Well, it's at 86, which is 2 over the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if 3 moved away, that would open up.
Sounds like a math problem. If 3 moved away, how many will be left?
Like,
Explain.
yeah. But that's the trigger number, right? That's the over,
Yep.
that's the 4 people over the
Mhm.
class policy. So again, I think a lot goes into what the makeup of the classes are. And that would be, that would be for Mr. Mitchell to decide if he needs it or not.
Then we don't need a policy for a trigger number. Then.
No,
I think we need some.
the policy is a guideline and recommendation. I don't think the trigger number is that actually in the policy?
It is.
It is, yeah.
Well, I've disagreed with that from the beginning. You know that.
So what is your recommendation, Mike?
So I want to be supportive of Dan because he has more of an inside look at the actual how. I mean, I do look at, he's proposing to have 20 in first grade. That's a high number in
It is a
first
high
grade,
number for first
especially
grade.
when not all of them were with us in kindergarten.
Right.
We know that some of them
Right.
did some were homeschooled, some were in private schools, et cetera. So that number worries me a little bit because under his proposal, his largest class size is first grade.
And there'll be more coming, I guarantee it.
And if we believe strongly in early intervention as an effective
That's
strategy,
the place to do it.
I just wonder about that. But
And that's where they get special ed identified usually in first grade when the ball starts rolling.
But on the same page, 23 is a lot of kids in a 4th grade classroom.
I also hear that.
Hold it. First grade has 19.5 based on 4 teachers and 78 kids.
With 78 kids. Yeah, that should.
So that's still under the class size guideline.
So
You're
that's
saying it was
19
the
for everybody,
largest?
but 2 classes have 20.
There's only 4 teachers.
Okay.
What is the deadline, so to speak, in terms of when you
So-
can't hire another teacher? Or I know at one point you did do some scramble in August for a first grade class. And I remember those phone calls to parents where the kids had gone in and met their teacher and then they were reassigned with a 5th teacher that came in, and there were parents that weren't happy about that. Is there a
You have 6 kids on
date?
first grade.
So that year we met the morning school opened, right? The board
Yeah.
met right before going in the auditorium to greet the teachers back
It was the day before school started.
and approve that. So there's not really a deadline. The practical reality is
So is this
the best teachers are getting snatched up right now.
Right.
And so the longer we wait, the deeper into the pool we are trying to get the best teacher. We have found some good people in August, but the old days of 200 teachers applying for an elementary position, they're out the window right now.
Mhm.
That's not happening.
Okay.
So, it's,
So for me, I feel comfortable saying that for kindergarten, I would support an extra teacher there today. I mean, that seems pretty easy, but I would prefer to hold on the rest of it.
have to, I'm update, these are hard numbers typed in. I'm just putting
Oh, okay.
formulas in
I was
so
just
that.
gonna say that number changed fast.
Yeah. What did you do?
Size based on budget. This number. Up.
So I guess the question on the table is, do we approve the use of the expendable trust fund?
We don't need to.
We can vote on it.
Yeah, but there's not a need.
Or do we not? Are we all in agreement that that's the question right now?
So whether we should let the trust,
I think we're all in agreement on kindergarten, first, second, and third grade as of right now.
Right.
Based on the numbers we have. The question mark is there is a recommendation from the building administrator to add a fourth grade teacher.
No, it would just be a shift.
Correct. Well,
Yeah. To
but
move
we
a
need
position.
to, yes.
but it would.
What if you move second to kindergarten? That's
the
the
other
shift
option.
I'm
That's what-
looking at,
That's what I think I'm
Initially.
saying.
Then we don't need to use the expendable trust yet.
unless we
Right.
really need it.
Right.
And then if you had another, like if these numbers
Fourth grade.
shifted and you
Yep.
wanted to, you could, because it's not a kindergarten expendable trust, it's a class
Right.
size reduction.
Right,
We-
right.
We had
That
said we
was
could
good
use
Which
it
is
at the
for
high
why
school
we
if we
created
needed
it.
to.
Yep.
So I'll be honest, I'm on the fence on it, but I will say I don't think we've hit either trigger number yet, which means whatever way you look at it, we haven't hit the 97, nor have we hit the 93.
Right.
So at this point, the class sizes are the recommendation. And so I am not for any action yet, but that is a number where I do think we should watch closely, because if another fourth grader does get added in, I would be tempted to make a motion and have that be voted on by this group, even if it's the 93. Because going over to that 23 and having one class of 24, to me, I don't understand why that isn't the trigger number. That makes no
I think
sense
what
to
might be
me.
helpful too, Heidi, is for you to have what the state recommendation is for class sizes, and then you can compare it to our class sizes and see that the state is drastically higher.
That's true. State is 30.
Right.
Third grade. That's new. That's
They-
just look at Manchester
Yeah.
numbers.
They haven't changed those numbers since.
Manchester numbers are
1950
that
or
high.
something.
1950.
I think that's been a standard that has been set for a while.
Right. But this, in terms of best practice for our district, is what we've been, the 23 seems to be the number to say that is the average, that is the class size. We don't want to go any higher than that for our classes, but apparently we're willing to do so for 3 classrooms. And when we
Yeah.
hit that 4th, then we'll move. I don't know if I agree with that philosophy. And so I think that's more where my issue lies than with the 92, 93 situation. So
So we can table this for our next meeting and just keep revisiting it? Is that what I'm hearing from the?
Absolutely.
Well, does that hinder our ability to hire for kindergarten right now, though, if we don't make that decision?
Just, slide a teacher.
Oh,
over.
yes, true. All right, sorry, yes, yes.
But yes, it does.
Yes,
If we,
that's right.
I mean, the pool is open right now.
Right,
So the
right,
longer
right.
we wait, the smaller the pool gets.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
All
I
right.
think waiting and tabling is,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
watch.
We'll add this to our next meeting's agenda.
And it's not to say that come our next meeting, the numbers aren't going to change, but just keep in mind that our last meeting, we were looking to add a first grade teacher.
No, we weren't.
Can we
That
have
was
the
the
print?
discussion.
The projection from last October was
Yes.
that we would need one.
Right.
We were in the library at
you know-
LMS. Remember that?
But then Dan wanted to add one to 4th grade.
Dan
to lower
said not
those
to do
numbers.
first grade. He
Right.
wanted 4th grade at the last meeting.
Can we have the principals put the message in their newsletters about enrollment? Because I know we put it on Facebook last time, but I don't remember.
It was in the
It was in
newsletters.
Mike's
Wasn't there?
It was in
superintendent
Mike's corner.
message.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Which is
put it
linked
in.
to
remember
every
seeing
blog.
that. Yeah.
That was his message.
All right.
Okay.
All set on that one?
Thank you.
Job descriptions?
So we're bringing forward 4 job descriptions. These are all SAU district positions. And basically, we have rewritten the description so that we can have our hourly staff shifted into a salary position. And we've really realigned the responsibilities that they have. So in each case, you've got a marked up copy with red lines of what's being added, strikeouts, et cetera. We would obviously clean all that up. I will tell you that each one of these has a person behind it. Corey met with his person. I met with my person. Devin met with her person. So we've all engaged the person being affected, if you would, with the rewrite of this.
And they're all full-time people.
They're all 40-hour-a-week employees.
Right, but they were hourly. Now they're
Right, now
salaried,
they're
but they're
salaried.
all full-time.
Correct. We did not change the hours, but we think that this will be a truer representation of what they're being asked to do. So job descriptions do need board approval.
Okay.
And Michelle, they don't do 2 reads, right? It's just one.
Unless they have a revision.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the job description for the account assistant to business administrator, human resource payroll administrator, executive assistant to special services, and executive assistant to the district school board.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Are these functions that these individuals are already doing? Because some of them, maybe it's just catching up with what they're already doing, or
Not necessarily.
not necessarily. So, okay.
Some of them are realigned.
Okay.
There were some, if you look at cross-outs on some, you see them popping up on others because as directors have changed and personnel have changed, like something that used to be done here is now being done here. Now the job description aligns to what they're doing. And in other cases, I had a conversation and I'm like, well, part of this is the stop doing list. Like we just need to stop doing some things and say, here's the way that we need to function. So that's
Michelle.
another key part. So
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the job descriptions as written? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Do you want to wait for Liz?
Oh.
Abstain. 5-0-0. The vote from the hallway. Thanks, Liz.
that district has adopted a recruitment incentive, and some who recommends a new employee receives a incentive, and any employee who then signs on gets an incentive to do a sign on. So in the case of that other district, the person in their district who found one of our employees received a $750 pay incentive for finding that person. The person who went there received a $750 pay incentive to go there. So that district is putting $1,500 into the recruitment. So I said, my gosh, we have to do something, because right now, as you heard Corey say, our facilities director and custodial supervisor are being custodians, because that's what we need to do to keep the buildings open and to keep the schools clean. So I met with both associations and I asked what they thought about this. They both felt that they could support this in the short term, given the scenario that we're in. So they would be interested in signing off on this for an expiration of August. I said, we'd be happy to do that. And we'd be happy to have another conversation in August if we needed to, right? So, this is something that I think it just allows us an opportunity to hopefully get back up to full staffing by engaging our current employees with an incentive to find some folks to come in. We did think it had to be something that was a position that was on a critical shortage list. So it's not for anybody who gets found, but the critical shortage list is linked there. And we have 4 positions that we put onto that critical shortage list. So
it's just one of each that we're in dire need of right now?
No. We have multiple custodial positions.
Okay, because it just says custodian. So there is
That's
more.
the title that's on the
As
list.
long as we're hiring
4.
custodians,
So
which
it's just
seems
a
like it's been an
custodian.
all year thing. I think
It's been years.
we were fully
That's what I
staffed
was
for a week, I think,
Yeah, I
this
think
year.
we're 4 short right now.
4.
Was it something like that?
I don't think we've
So
ever
maybe we
had
should
a
add
full,
an S to
a
the
full
end of all
staff
of this.
person.
So our goal would be to, offer this incentive. And if the board or the public is curious, how are you going to fund it? The answer is the wages we're not paying right now because seriously, there's a significant amount of money that's available just because we haven't had custodians all year. So, it's a small incentive, but I think it's a way to energize people toward helping out.
So one of the things I was thinking when Tom was talking about all the different class moves and everything else, can we, I suppose, first offer to current employees if they want to pick up additional pay or hours, whatever. But I don't know how you could do that with, I suppose,
thought we were doing
paras
that
and
already.
things. What's that?
I thought we were doing that already.
You mean with the move?
Well, with the
or-
moves and
When they
stuff.
move and the moving classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking more like high school students, if they get a couple days or if it's 1 week, whatever, moving that we offer,
Yeah.
put it out there to the high school, like just grunt work. Hey, you're going to throw stuff away and move stuff into a room.
We do have substitute positions, temp positions that we take on during the summer. A lot of things you got to think when they're moving these classrooms, they tear the building apart in the summer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there's time they're not going to have the day-to-day cleaning necessarily. It's all project based during the summer. So it'll be all hands on deck to do that type of stuff. Overtime is an option.
Well, I'm
And-
thinking
Where-
about avoid overtime. Can we just hire some high school
Right.
kids
Yep.
to assist?
What's
in
our
doing this?
liability
Expand
on
those
that?
temp positions.
Hire
What's
them.
that?
The liability.
You hire them.
You hire them.
Employee, there be an
It's not like you're paying
employee.
them under the table.
Right.
I don't know.
So, and I don't know if, I'm sure Dave could figure out like a time frame because you've had all kinds of
Well,
discussions.
you don't have them doing
They'd have to work with somebody, a professional,
yeah,
I would think,
absolutely.
yeah.
My siblings, several of them worked at the local high school growing up during the summers, and they cleaned out lockers, and there are lots of jobs around the school.
We've had high school students in the past,
Yeah.
and they're taught how to do the job.
Right.
I have one
Once
that
you know
just
that, like-
totaled a car that would be great for you.
Yeah, once you know that what,
Some
those
stick
rooms are-
around, some don't.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, once the fifth grades are empty,
Mm-hmm.
then you can start moving stuff. And I'm just figuring more hands if you can just hire, because you
Yeah.
can't hire for these positions.
Mm.
And it's critical. And like you said, it's all going to be, movement and everything else.
Right.
So
So if we do open up those positions for like a summer intern or a temp or something like that, just, more advertising we can do, marketing we can do, the better.
Well, the notice that we put out recently that said, if you know of a college student coming home, right?
Yeah.
So we had a recent grad of Campbell went on to a really great university, and he's come back and said this would be a great summer job. I'd be happy to help out my school district. So he's now on the list. He'll be
Good.
one of the temp workers, and we're excited to have him.
Good. So how do they just go to online and apply for any position?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
They went online. He filled out the application, submitted his material. Dave interviewed him, and I
Great.
signed his paperwork the other day, so he's good to go.
Okay. Is it the same
So I think we
process for
have-
them as well, where they need they need 3 letters of recommendation and
Um,
background checks and all that?
So it depends on the position. I mean,
Okay.
for a custodian, we'll do the background checks, obviously, but
Yeah.
a formal letter of recommendation is a little harder to get in that field. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I just had a question about do we want to consider the incentive for people prior employees that have had a longer gap in service, like 5 years or more? I know you don't want to, you want it to be like an actual recruitment, but I think that would be some work to get somebody back, and then you'd have people back who were already here, maybe have some inside knowledge.
because it says
Because it's
Not-
they've
that's not a work
it's
trip.
eligible for those who have never worked here, but what about people who have had like
I'm
some year gap?
I'm totally open to that. That was taken right from another district's plan.
Just wondering how much this will move the needle,
I wouldn't want a yo-yo. I wouldn't want somebody who just left to now say, I can come
Right.
back.
Right.
and that's how I read the intent in that. Just like
Yeah.
you just had a custodian who left and wanted to come back.
Right. I mean, that's what I was thinking, like 5 years or something like that. Just a thought.
Where did you come up with the amounts? Just out of curiosity, because you said the
Well,
one you
I-
heard it from before was 750. So I'm just
Yeah, to be honest, this is a gut. In talking it out loud in the office, we're all like, that's way too much. What would be an incentive that somebody would respond to? Because really, a $1,500 investment for one person just felt like that's a lot.
Yeah.
Heidi, I think it goes back to something you mentioned at the last meeting, start low. No, right?
Negotiation,
No,
yeah.
and if it doesn't work, then we can always like
Yeah, go up.
revisit.
Yeah.
And we also split this out to say, okay, so somebody who signs and gets the incentive and then quits a week later, like that's not really the point of it either. So when we
Right.
said they're
90
still here
days.
90 days later, it's like
That's fair.
only recommend somebody who's
Right.
going to last.
Absolutely.
So those were all kind of things. So why did we come up with that amount? It just felt like that's a decent amount considering we're at zero now.
Mhm.
This
Sure.
puts us into somewhere and
Absolutely.
Do you need approval from the board then?
I think we do because this is going to enter into MOA territory. So I think having board approval will then draw that up. The board chair will need to sign off on the MOA. So you really need authorization to sign
Yeah.
on behalf of the board. I
All
think.
right.
So this is only an incentive for the employee who is recruiting, not that two-way incentive that you were talking about, right?
Both.
This is both.
Oh, this is both. I didn't
So
read that the same way. Okay.
The person who finds the person will be eligible. Any current employee who finds somebody, and then the person who comes in will get that incentive
Oh, see, I
also.
didn't read it that way. Okay. Okay.
Right. The second
And
half
the
is the sign up
associations are
incentive
okay.
payment.
Oh, geez, then I missed that. I didn't read the whole thing.
The
down.
bottom.
Okay.
Yeah,
There
it's
we go.
split into two parts because one is
Yeah,
for
that's
the
right. I
one
read
is
this
for the
today at
finder and
4:45.
one is for the findee.
I'll make a motion to accept the critical shortage recruitment incentive plan.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 500.
One other piece is that if we find ourselves, we may come back to you to add to the list, right? So if something else emerges, there could be something in the teaching field that we come back and say, we need your help. We want to offer this. And then we'll have a vote to add it. That way we know that everybody's in agreement with what we're talking about.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
LSSA negotiations.
So we've received a letter from Joyce Wilcox, who is the chief negotiator for the Support Staff Association. And she is requesting to initiate negotiations with the board.
Okay, sure.
Yep. Tara, you on?
Sounds like a plan.
Tara and I are on.
Yeah.
Do you need a vote?
I don't think we need a vote. This is a public acknowledgement that we're
Okay.
starting that process. You will notice it's copied to the PELRB because that's all a legal requirement in the RSA. And since the letter has come in, we'll schedule a meeting and get our board members lined up so that we can have an initial conversation before the year lets out. That's our goal.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for that. So you don't need a vote.
Michelle, we don't need a vote. There's
I
not
don't believe so.
Okay.
Only when you're ready to enter into
Okay.
negotiations do you need a vote.
And LEA negotiations.
Yep. And so actually that was an ad because that letter came in after the agenda. So that we have one also from LEA.
Oh, the LEA, yeah.
Yep. So it's the same process that they are also seeking to begin negotiations for both agreements will start in 22. But this gives us next year to negotiate them, make sure if there are impacts that they can be on the warrant next year. And so we also would plan to start that. And it will be Heidi and Brian, right, that are on that team. And we'll start that process also this spring.
All right.
Awesome.
Acknowledged and accepted. I guess. 21-24 school board goals.
Yeah. So let me click and open this up.
I did look at those today.
I didn't have a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
I like them.
So let me talk a little bit about
They're
Michelle
awesome.
and I had, a really energized conversation where we took all the work the board did in the retreat. The Jamboard notes are still there. We have everything that the board had generated. And then we structured it for you in this goals document. And so a couple of things I want to point out. In the header, you'll see that the responsible parties are the board, because they're your goals, so your names are on them, but also our administrative team. And it's not the full administrative team, it's the team that will be responsible for spearheading these. And it's really me. A lot of these have to do with teaching and learning. So Mary is the director of curriculum instruction and assessment, needed to be named. Corey is the business administrator, needed to be named because there are facilities type of things that are on here. And the 3 principals needed to be named because they're the ones who are going to execute this in the school. And you saw with Tom's presentation that the schools are really kind of regrouping around who they are and where they would like to go. They'll be setting the action steps from the board goals. Okay. So you might say, well, wait a minute, I stuck a note on the Jamboard that really was about this thing in 8th grade, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not going to see that reflected in the goal, but that will be in the action steps that flow out of this. The first thing is to make sure that the way we captured the goals and the way we generated the language about it will lead to, now how will LMS execute that? How will CHS execute that?
So the admins are getting those sticky notes that we.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And during the Live to Learn retreat with the administrators, we will be developing those action steps, assuming the board has adopted the goal document by that time, which I think, I'd like to think that we can get there.
When is that retreat?
That is the week after school. So
okay.
June 24, 25 in that ballpark. So the very next thing we did is we listed our mission, our vision, and our portrait of a learner. Those are the driving documents that ought to be, linked to these goals. And while we were engaged in rewriting this, we kept looking back, like, are we using the same words? Does our mission tell us that this is what we ought to be doing? And we were trying to make sure that it wasn't a curveball, that there was alignment with that. Another thing you'll notice is that we renumbered the order. So I want to draw your attention to the first 3. Our feeling was the first thing is love of learning. Like everybody, faculty, staff, students, we have to acknowledge that love of learning and instill that love of learning. We do it with great teachers. And then ultimately that will lead to post-secondary pathways. Mm-hmm. But the old one almost felt backward because it's sort of like, well, everybody's going to go on to some post-secondary thing. Right. And by the way, it's because we have love of learning and great teachers. Right. It was sort of like beginning with the end in mind, and we wanted to work our way toward that.
Well, it was very focused on test scores and data and kind of the minutia. I think this is much broader, but it encompasses.
The goals themselves are the bold documents that are written there, and it really is the thing we're hoping to achieve. We tried to write 3 concise indicators around each one. And when I asked the administrative team to review this, so remember, they weren't part of the retreat. They didn't see it. I didn't tell them this until afterwards, but I said, when you read those, did you envision, I need to do the following? Did things pop into your head as to what you need to do in order to make that happen? And they were like, absolutely. As I read this, I thought, here's a thing that I need to do. Now, the board is still going to get the opportunity through either the sticky notes or when their proposed action steps come back to you, you have an opportunity for feedback on those, or to say, I'm not sure that you're prioritizing that in the way we envisioned it, right? So it's still a work in progress to get to those action steps, but I think the indicators are kind of instilling in people's minds what they need to do in order to pull off these 3 goals. And then when you get to the second page, and it's interesting, there's like that natural break where it then shifts to facilities and it shifts to community engagement. And we tried to write those in ways that were more, aspirational is maybe the way to frame it. And what would it look like so that people can get after it. Now,
we also know the goals that we want to accomplish for the facilities going forward. So we kind of thought that would be the guiding step to writing those indicators.
And then the only, I'm still getting some feedbacks from the administrative team. So one administrator said to me, do you realize that nowhere on this document is the word technology? It's not even there. And I'm like, okay, but where would it go? And they were like, well, it's sort of in a couple of different spots. So I said, well, again, if the action step is a technology related one, because is technology the thing we want to do, or is it the tool that allows us to execute these goals? And so we're still working our way through that kind of notion.
Interesting. Yep.
So I guess in asking the board to consider this, we should not vote on this tonight because you're just getting it. You want to digest it. Oh no, I already gave you the answer. Do things pop into your head like, oh, my thing that I really think is important falls right here. Like this is a way to get at that thing. And then influencing the administrative team, if they don't come up with that, which I think they will, because I think it will allow us to also generate the same kind of idea. Remember, they'll have access to stickies. So if it's there, it'll be considered. So
Yeah.
I think in a short document, it captures a lot.
It does.
I mean, it's clean. It's like, it's there and
Absolutely.
it's a
That's
lot
what I
there.
like about it.
It's a lot easier to read than that matrix was.
Sure is.
Do you remember that? Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
They will sticky notes
Those
too.
before you.
Right.
well, and
This is great.
there may be a matrix when you get to
Right,
action
right.
steps
Yeah,
and
true.
who's doing
Well,
what.
but we'll
But-
have a different kind of dashboard going forward. It
Right.
will be much more easier to read, but comprehensive to the goals and action steps. And
Yeah.
I think,
I like it.
you'll see a measurement there instead of we did X. You'll just see the
Right.
dial go up and up and up. And once it reaches 100%, we've reached our goal.
I already see a few things that I want to get nailed down and started. So it's great.
So we'll bring back in old business next meeting this document. If you have thoughts, comments, feedback, get those to me.
Sure.
And if you want to go back and look at your sticky notes and add to them, the Jamboard is still open. You can do that. And that'll become a part of our document. And so in my vision, the administrative team at the retreat works on this. In July, we're coming back with a first look at action steps. We'll tweak and adjust those. By early next year, we can literally lay out to our faculty, these are the goals, these are the proposed action steps. This is how we're going to monitor and track that going forward. And it'll be really clear and hopefully a unifying experience for everybody.
Great. Thank you so much for pulling that
Yeah,
together.
great thought
Yeah,
process.
that's great.
That's great. Okay, on to old business. Our favorite topic.
Coronavirus. So just very, very quickly, I mean, the numbers are really very positive at this point. Let me share these so that if people in the public want to see it, they can follow along. I should have done the goal document. All right.
Wow.
So GMS, currently, there are no cases in our schools. The number of quarantined students has declined. In most cases, these are family exposures that are leading to a need to quarantine. The impact on our staff has gotten better, and student absences are in a good spot. So, consistently, the transmission rate in New Hampshire and in Hillsborough County is minimal, and we're seeing that in our schools. When we go to LMS, same story. There are no cases currently. There are only 2 students who are quarantined. Unfortunately, they are through the end of May just because of when they got exposed in the family and how many days they have to wait that out. And really minimal impact on staff at LMS. And at CHS, again, there are no cases currently. There are 2 students who are quarantined. One of those will come off over the weekend and be ready to return back to school. And the impact on our staff is minimal too.
So I know in our MOA that we have guidelines as far as that we'll pay for like teachers to quarantine and that type of thing. But now that they've all had access to the vaccine, can we revisit that, or is it just where there's not, I don't see that we're responsible for giving them time if they had the opportunity to get vaccinated.
So actually, I'm just pulling my numbers up. So if you look at the people that are working from home at Griffin, there are none today.
Good.
There was one yesterday, but that may have been dig into exactly why that was, but very few examples of that. At LMS, there are none who are working from home. And at CHS, there are two. One is a long-term illness that has the person working from home. And that's actually beneficial for our students and for us to have that scenario.
I guess I'm referring more to, let's say teacher A tomorrow gets COVID.
Yep.
And has to quarantine. And we said we would pay like a portion of days that were utilized. Right?
Yeah, that special agreement that we came.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
the additional days that the federal government extended, the 10 days,
Yeah.
we agreed to carry those through the year. So
Mhm.
it's not 10 every time. It's a
I
total of
realize
10,
that.
but yes.
But
Is it
with-
time to end it? I think that's what you're
Right.
asking.
There's only like 20 days left to spend.
I know, but I mean, a lot of businesses have done it already
Yeah.
We're not a
because you
business.
have the opportunity to be vaccinated.
Yep, and that's a benefit that we extended to all of our employees, no matter, the reason we extended it was because it wasn't fair for the employees who were sick before
Right, but at the
December
time, there wasn't a
31st.
vaccine when we wrote that up.
Right,
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there. There's a vaccine now, so.
Well, and one of the things, Brian, if you look at the staff working from home,
Yeah.
at April 23rd at the high school, there were 3 people, and it hit 4 on May 5th, and now it's back down to 2. And part of that has been the vaccine has actually helped us. There were people who were, because of FMLA accommodations, they were working from home. But once they were fully vaccinated, we said there's no longer a reason to do that. So we have been able to return people back to work as it went on. The one thing is, I'll give you an example. I was talking with another colleague who had gotten shot 1, had gotten shot 2, went a week after shot 2, and then contracted COVID. And, the doctor said, well, you're the 3%, 4%, but you're the 3 or 4%. You got it right here. And so, if that were to happen to somebody, and there are examples of even if you're the 2 weeks beyond it, still getting through, I do think extending that to the employee who gets it that late in the year when somebody early on had access to the 10 days, I think it makes some
No,
sense.
I agree. I'm referring to someone who decided not to get vaccinated, comes down with COVID.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about.
Are we allowed to even ask that?
no,
We have committed that we're not going to ask that it was not a,
Are teachers allowed to ask students if they've been vaccinated?
are they allowed? Well, I don't think it's illegal to
What would
ask
be
that
the need?
question. However, I will tell you that I have sent an email to our high school staff and our middle school staff. The high school staff after 16 plus had access, and then the middle school after 12 plus had access. And I said that I want them to foster an environment where no student feels pressured about the highly individual choice that they and their families are
Thank
making.
you.
So that's the expectation that we have laid out, that, nobody. Now, here's the thing. If it's a class debate, just a
Oh,
discussion.
absolutely. If the kids
what are the pros, what are
volunteering,
the
but
pluses,
they
and
should
people
not be put on the spot to ask if they got a vaccine.
nor made to feel, that's
Shame one
wrong.
way or
There's
the
no
other.
right answer and there's no wrong answer in this one. So,
Yeah, some people would disagree with that.
all right. So that's what I had on the COVID numbers, and just coming back to the agenda. So honestly, remote learners, there are very few remote students at this point. We are in the process of writing a updated reopening plan. So in order to apply for some of the federal funds that are available to us, we're supposed to file our plan. We'll get that to the board as soon as possible. The the plan I'm envisioning writing is what we want to do next year. Like I want to have the plan for next year. I really envision a short and sweet, heavily linked document that links to NHIA guidelines, CDC guidelines, et cetera. And wherever they go is just sort of it's what we've done anyway. We sort of follow those guidelines along. So we just want to capture those in a very short and sweet plan and make that available for our public. Masks. So masks have become a major topic. All you have to do is watch the news and you'll know that masks are a topic. We've had a significant number of phone calls. We've met as a team. We've talked at length about it. We're looking at the science. We're looking at the evolution of the coronavirus, the way it spreads, et cetera. And what our plan is for tomorrow, unless there's outcry from the board to not do this, our plan tomorrow is around two things, which is recess and athletics. In the case of recess, we really want to go back to what we were doing in September before the cases heated up in October at GMS when we put masks in on the playground. We want to go back to those September guidelines and just make the masks optional while at recess. That would not impact indoor recess and it would not impact indoor classroom masking protocols. But once the students go out to the playground, if you remember, they all had a fluorescent fanny pack that they were able to put their mask into so they could keep track of it.
That was awesome.
And they were able to take the mask off at recess. And
Does that go for gym class too?
so interesting. We did not talk about gym class.
Just
That
now
is a
occurred
good
to me.
thought.
Gym class, and I would say that a lot of the classes are taking their kids outside for
That's great.
teaching during the day. So not necessarily recess time, but they're purposely going outside, spreading them out. They have their
Walking
they
around
have
the
their
building. I know
noodles
the eighth
and-
grade goes around the building.
Yeah, and they have their noodles and they keep themselves, they're away from everyone.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
I
that
would
changes.
think that it should match
Yeah.
that recess
If they're
policy.
distanced and
So let me just put a note. I'm going to double check this with Dan, just in case there's something we're not thinking of. But my note is outside classes, including PE. And I think that's a reasonable, I mean, how do we say to a 5-year-old, oh, recess is outdoors, but this isn't really outside?
Same way you're going to
So-
say to a senior that you're outside and you have to wear a mask.
We're going to revisit that.
Who's 18
Agree.
and vaccinated.
I think-
The second thing is for athletics. So let me just say, I am frustrated with the messaging from NHIA.
Oh,
It really has
absolutely.
been,
Mhm.
it
Can
has
you
not been,
summarize that? Because I didn't
haven't-
hear
yeah, I
about
haven't
that
heard
yet.
It's a roller coaster. You
it
better
has
buckle
not
up.
been leadership. It's been sort of reactive stuff. And they, the problem is the NHIA only controls the tournaments. They set the rules at tournaments. They set a bunch of rules about how you get eligible to play in a tournament. So we have to follow all those rules, but they really can't dictate what we have to do outside of uniform requirements and other stuff that's in the rules for tournament eligibility. So, so they sent out, they had a meeting, they sent out this statement and Josh read it one way, I read it a different way, Bill read it a third way. And we're like, well, that's not clear communication. The three of us read the same statement and have three interpretations of what it means. So we sort of have held the line on where it was prior to that statement, which was masks are required in competition. So we're going to train like we're going to be expected to play by wearing the masks. We got clarity on it and basically have looked at what other districts have done. And we think the right thing to do is to go with actively participating athletes at both the high school and the middle school, even though the NHIA thing is not really at the middle school, but we should be consistent, right? That would allow actively participating athletes to lower their mask during the competition, as long as both teams agree with it, because there are some schools that are saying, no, we want the masks on. We won't even play you if you take your mask off.
The thing
So-
is, no one's policing it anymore anyway.
No.
The referees aren't
Right.
doing anything, and most of them are just wearing them as chin diapers right now anyway.
They have
So
mouth guards and they have masks on.
Yeah.
Where it's cruel at this point.
I'd also like to consider, it's not just competition. Can we allow actively participating athletes during practice? to do the same
Should be the
thing?
same way
Yes.
they
I think
participate.
they are. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
I mean, you
Well, I
already,
just want to make sure because it only says during competition here.
Oh, I'll add that right in. I think our intent is practice, because
Okay.
practice is getting ready for the competition, which is getting ready for the tournament. I mean, that's
During
the,
or yeah. all
and the
right.
thing is, you have every organized sport in town right now that has already relieved their mask requirements and allowing participants to play without a mask.
Because they're outside. It's probably the reason.
So
the,
I
the
know
one,
they have to-
just one clarity point on this. So why are we saying actively participating? So it doesn't impact the athletes who are on the sidelines or preparing for competition unless they can keep the 6 feet of social distancing.
That's
So
what
I
was
said,
gonna ask. So
okay, so here's the guy warming up to be pitcher. He's 90 feet away from the catcher and pretty far away from everybody else. Does he really need the mask on when he's over there? And so, to me, that's an okay example of where you could take that off. But if you were on a bench and the kids are literally shoulder to shoulder, then we would expect that the masking would be adhered to at that
So
point.
let's take, like Rachel Salas brought up softball, so I'll use that as an example. You have 9 players on the field, you have 4 players on the bench who can all social distance.
Mhm.
Are they going to be required to wear a mask?
They would not.
Okay.
So on the
So
bench,
if it
as-
says actively
That's a long
engaged or
bench.
actively,
yeah. So the kids in the field are actively participating, the 9 on the field.
Yeah.
And the 4 on the bench, as long as they can be 6 feet apart.
Mhm.
So we are doing 6 on this one.
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's fine.
guess could do 3, but as long as there's 6, they could take the mask off there.
does that include the coaches also?
It does. Yep.
So I'm curious about other outdoor things. So for example, we're in the process of trying to plan an 8th grade social. Tom was talking about it, and some portion of it may be outside. If the kids are distant, it's as different. Prom just happened and they were required to wear masks. With this new guidelines, they're outside. If we have the dance or social, whatever we're calling it, outside, do
It's
they
not
have to wear
athletics.
masks? Huh?
It's not athletics. So this is a
I
policy-
understand.
Right.
But recess,
Mhm.
we're saying, okay, and we're, again, and this is that consistency piece
Yep.
for me. So I think, to me, what we're saying is if you're outside and it's a school activity, whether it's athletics, whether it's, you can maintain 6
Recess,
feet,
yeah.
you don't need your mask. And as long as we are clear that that's across the board, I think that's great.
Well, I
Yeah.
think what the
I think it's a nightmare
right,
for
but I think what the
administration.
concern is, or what the current concern was, as far as in both these areas, is how much energy they're exerting during warm weather or even non-warm weather, and
Running
being
around.
restricted by a mask.
Mhm.
Mm.
A dance, you're not, going to encourage that much exertion.
Well,
So it's what
Depends.
When's the
precipitated,
last
but
time
I
you've been
agree
to a
with
dance?
Heidi. The whole it needs to be taken as a whole.
It'll be inside and outside. Technically, the prom was outside because there were no sides to the.
It was outside.
It was.
Yeah,
Well,
they
and,
wear masks the whole time.
there was a lot of policing of masks.
Yeah,
That was not, I mean,
ideal.
sorry?
It wasn't ideal. for
No, not ideal.
administration.
It was a lot of work for the administrative
Mhm.
team. And, but here's the thing, the students all gathered in homes across the town beforehand
Really?
without masks.
Really?
Imagine that.
Outside?
how dare
Then they come to school and, we're the meanies who are making the masks be worn.
Should have
Right?
had the prom in my backyard.
But it was a part of a condition of we have to have
Having
this.
the
But we
prom,
also
right.
started planning the prom before we ever thought
Yeah.
a 16-year-old was going to get a shot in the arm. I
That's
mean,
true.
you realize,
Or
I don't know,
12-year-old.
2 months ago,
Right.
the 16-year-olds were slated for September.
Right.
Absolutely.
We're already putting shots in arms at 12 years old. I mean, this thing has gone
It was
in
So we
ways
also
we
have
didn't
a
imagine.
we also have a large population in town who are not having their kids be vaccinated. So I think we have to be cognizant of that as well. We can say, oh, they could get vaccinated, but there's still spread happening.
So
There
that's
is.
my kid has to suffer.
It is
'cause they're
not our
choosing- It's not my
responsibility to protect them when
responsibility.
they have that choice.
We
Yeah.
today's
Do it.
newspaper, there was a Monadnock Regional School, which is a 712 school, just went remote because they had 7 cases. So, I think they were out all year. They went back after April vacation, and now they're already in a remote situation just because of the spread that occurred there. But
Right. And you may not feel it's your personal responsibility to take care of other people of the other students who are unvaccinated, but as a school district, I think we do have a responsibility to take care of all of our students.
Absolutely.
an
So
even.
are we gonna wear masks next year because they chose
Liz,
not to get
I'm not saying what
vaccinated?
we're going to do. I just
No,
think-
I'm just saying, you're passing judgment on my thought. I saw you talk to Corey and turn around and say, wow, that was
I feel
offensive.
as a school board member and as a school district, I think it is our responsibility to take care of all students, whether or not their parents chose to vaccinate them. I'm not passing judgment on you personally. You may personally believe that, but I think as a district, we need to be careful about what we do and what we say about all of our students.
Well, they can wear masks and my kid doesn't have to wear a mask because I chose to have my children vaccinated. Next year, I fully believe that kids will be wearing masks next year and the year after, and that's fine. That will be their protection against getting COVID.
I do think, if the vaccine's 95% effective and
Mhm.
so 5 out of 100 could get it, but if the mask cuts that risk from, 5 down to 1 or something, I don't know. I don't know what the magic number is.
Right.
But
So
I
you
do
want
think
100 kids to wear it
No, no,
because
no.
5
No,
kids
no,
didn't
no,
get
no.
vaccinated?
Not at all.
But we also don't know how many of our students are vaccinated. We don't know if enough of our students are vaccinated.
Oh, I fully believe the GMS, absolutely, because none of them could be quarantined.
none of them are
Vaccinated, right? Or
None.
that's their
They may come
prerogative.
fall.
I'm only advocating for no
Out-
masks outside.
I
I mean,
agree.
I still
I
believe
absolutely
fully
agree.
inside right now.
Oh, I agree with
I
that.
think
Oh, I
the
know.
whole board is fully supportive of masks
Inside.
inside.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think what I'm saying is that there are other events besides recess, outside
Absolutely.
classroom, gym that are going to be outside,
Field day.
Like high school
like
graduation.
high school
Field day,
graduation.
yeah,
And that's where I know it's a
graduation.
slippery slope. But again, if the distance can be achieved,
But I think it's at that point, and I think what Liz is saying, it should, we're almost at the point where it should be personal choice. When
I
you're
agree
out,
with that.
when you're outdoors.
I agree with that. But I'm not sure we're there. We have a month left of this school year. And so I think at least for inside, sticking with our
Oh,
Oh,
I don't-
absolutely.
I don't
I'm
think any of
talking
us are
about like
disagreeing.
outside.
Agreed.
I think outdoors, I think it should be personal choice. And there's enough studies and science out there that it's not happening outdoors.
My 90-year-old
And I know there's
mother,
like thousands of cases
85
that
degrees on
you
the
can't account for how
graduation.
it occurred, but
A graduation is 90 degrees and my 88-year-old mother has to wear a mask. She won't go. She can't go.
Liz, she'll just pull it down and no one's going to say anything to her.
I don't know. If they're gonna hold it like the prom, maybe they will.
Well, what I understood Bill's plan to be was that the students would be wearing masks because they are sitting less than 3 feet apart.
I want my son sitting 6 feet away and not wearing a mask. I'm gonna request that.
Well, let us revisit this because the other piece is that for Bill and Mike to present a plan today
Mhm.
meant that they met with their prom committee, or I'm sorry, their graduation
Yeah.
committee
Who is
last
their
week.
graduation committee? Are there parents on it?
Great question. I'm not sure. Do we know who's on?
I don't know.
There weren't
Greg,
parents on it until I requested last year.
So I really don't know who's on the committee, but they met with them last week. They started to map this out. And they were basing that on last week's data, which is
Right.
different.
Right.
So
Mhm.
this feedback is important. And we're still, how many days? 15 days away from graduation.
I know there's not much
So,
time.
You know, it will, I think we continue to have dialogue about it. I guarantee you in the COVID call tomorrow, we're going to be talking about graduation. And just to see where it
Right.
goes.
And for the
what
record,
happens.
I'm not saying that all kids need to be masked all the time while they're outside. I just think we still have to think about all of our students. So that's all.
Outside. I don't want to think about anybody outside. I think it's my son is vaccinated. He can be mask free outside as far as I'm concerned.
We
That's my
know,
personal.
I mean, of the handful of kids who are still remote, there are some families who have kept their children home because there's an immune compromised
Mhm.
family member, and they're just being extraordinarily cautious because of that.
Are
And
they
so,
coming to graduation?
well, but the point is they can access remote learning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we have one kid in a remote graduation. If there's one,
Mhm.
just what does that look like? And we have to wrestle our way through that.
Well, if there is just one, we can push them off.
I think we
her
should have a
into
screen and
corner
have
somewhere,
I think we should
distance from
zoom the
everyone.
kid in if he wants to come to the graduation and
All I know is that I don't know what's going to happen next year, but I'm going to push for mask starting like in November. The whole big concern or a large concern was, oh my God, we have COVID and then we're going to have flu season. Did anybody get the flu?
They didn't test
Well,
for the flu.
I will,
Mask.
it was masks and hand washing and social distancing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, those three strategies,
So think about it. If we do that starting like November, right through flu season,
You
I will
couldn't
tell
pay me
you,
to wear a mask next year in my class.
what's that?
You couldn't pay me to wear a mask next year if I don't have to.
12 years ago, I'm walking through Tokyo and you see Japanese people literally getting on the train wearing masks. And it seems weird to Americans. Like, why are they wearing a mask?
30
answer
years
is-
ago in Paris wearing masks.
They were protecting themselves. And
Yeah.
bird flu, you got to remember the bird flu
Oh,
did
right.
start in Asia.
Yeah.
But
I thought it was a
you know,
pollution.
they were pretty
It was
smart
weird
about
for all
it.
of us to wear a mask too, but then you just got used
Just
to
get
it.
used to it. I think there's a lot of stuff a lot of things that we've learned a lot
A
from
ton.
this pandemic that will stay in place.
So for today's purposes or tonight's purposes, sorry, I'm
Don't
gonna
care
move
about
this
no, I'm
along.
with
Don't care about
I
Tokyo.
know, I'm
For
back with
tonight's,
you.
no, Tokyo's great. I'm curious. I guess my recommendation, you're not looking for a board vote on this. This is admin decision. You're looking for feedback. For recess and athletics, I absolutely agree with what you have written here. I would encourage you to think about expanding it beyond just those things and perhaps having a clear policy of outside, optional, if distancing can be achieved, inside, always mask. And that way it's clear. It's, something that, okay, we're outside, then that's clear.
Well,
And I know you need to talk to your admin team, and I get that. But I think, to me, that's the cleanest way to do it, in the sense that outside, distance, fine.
Well, Heidi, what that helps me is that becomes the header
Yeah.
with recess and athletics
Mhm.
as the specific examples, right? But, that's the consistent statement.
School activities.
that
I'm
you
not
would
even
like
sure
to see.
if it's social, if you can social distance. I think, again, it's choice. And if someone's comfortable being outdoors without a mask,
Well,
But is it
you're
choice
using the
for
word,
the 9-year-olds? Like, I'm just confused to where the choice is it just LMS and is it ages 12 and up? I mean, who gets the choice?
the student does.
and that's ultimately going to come from the
I
parent.
would think the
assume.
parent
Parent
would.
does, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you, regardless of what school you're at, if a parent is comfortable, you're going to have an outside activity, like they're going to have field day at GMS. And if you send your child and you're comfortable, and GMS is a little different because no one's vaccinated
Right.
down there.
Right.
Right.
But still, there are some parents who are comfortable not putting a mask on. So let's discard, put GMS aside, and even LMS, it's only half of LMS. So, but like the high school,
The only reason I'm saying distance, not the only reason, there are other reasons, but the biggest reason I'm saying distance is consistency, because we're putting that in the athletic policy and saying
If you're
you
on
can
the
only on
bench.
the bench if you're 6 feet. So again, just for the sake of
Yep.
having this consistent policy,
I don't understand why the policies are the same inside and outside. I'm just throwing that in there. I know I'm off topic.
well,
That's
you know
why
what
we're
I mean?
changing the outside
that's what I think
policy.
we should
Yeah.
be changing the outside one.
Yeah.
But
Like,
I
I
think
don't think it should be 6 feet. If it's the inside one.
well, inside's 3 feet with a mask on.
With a
With the-
mask on.
So if you're 4 feet, you can take your mask off.
No.
No.
It's
6 feet.
Mhm.
Then why can't we do 3 feet outside? Is it still 6 feet outside?
Okay, now you're confusing me. I'm trying to, well, it's just all
Right.
these
They're
moving
the
parts.
same-
Of,
know.
It's the same thing inside and outside.
I think what the CDC has done is to try to not confuse people. They've been consistent
They
with
confuse us
the number. Well, they've also come out and said that,
Vaccinated.
if vaccinated.
if vaccinated.
indoors in a restaurant, you
You could take
could 20 feet away, people are contracted. I mean, there's documented cases that it's actually, depending on the way the air circulation is blowing, it can travel that kind of distance. So even 6 feet isn't, quote, safe.
But you understand, why
Inside.
is it the same inside as outside? You still have to wear a mask if you're 6
honestly,
feet
I
up.
think it's a bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're literally going from a more restrictive place to a more less restrictive place, and it's a bridge. Maybe it's not 6 feet, maybe, but
Yeah.
steps. I mean,
Yeah.
at the very least, again, people are outside. They're not being required to wear a mask. It's optional. You can if you want to, if your
Right.
family wants to.
And I think
No distance.
and I think it's a bridge until we reach 60 to 70% vaccinated.
I mean, we are
Well, we
at the
might not
finish
ever reach
line.
that.
We
If
are at
people
the
choose-
finish line
Probably
here,
won't.
and we have had a great year. And look at our numbers are 0 right now. What I
Right.
don't want to see is we relax this to the point where all of a sudden
It's a free for
we have kids that are missing their end of the year activities because they're stuck quarantined. That would be terrible to me. So I'm very conscious of that as well. We don't want to screw this up on the 5-yard line here. So, that's why I would keep the distance in there. That being said, I it's up to you. It's the admin team decision.
Well, and that's why we want to maintain it. We're like, first of all, our kids have had more access to in-person learning than, or as much as any district out there, right? So we've really provided that. And we just want to continue to be smart and finish strong.
Sure. And I understand. I think that's where I'm coming from in terms of keep the distance in place, make the masks optional outside, keep the masks not optional, mandated inside.
Mhm.
Let's finish up June 17th, and then we go back to the drawing board. And once we have, again, more
data.
recommendations, and we may know when that younger population will be able to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you for that. We'll
I don't know if we got anything accomplished.
lively discussion tomorrow, and then we'll be communicating in newsletters out to everybody where we currently are. But I think we can get this. I think we can get it to a simpler spot.
But it could change tomorrow afternoon
Well,
in a meeting.
Yeah, who knows?
we do have to remember that our own state epidemiologist, so Dr. Chan,
Yep.
isn't totally on board with the CDC.
No,
He's
he
saying,
isn't.
I think you went too fast. And, and honestly, if you look at the national numbers, New Hampshire's like the 11th worst in the country.
We're not great.
We're not. Remember back when we were hovering down in the like 45 plus?
Yeah.
We're not there anymore. Now, we also think it's because a lot of other people are cheating. We don't
Yes.
think the numbers are as reliable as they once were, but we think we're not. And so we look worse. But anyway,
Are we still in the,
who's to accuse?
according to that, the key factors of the risk thing, the global, the map of
Map.
the red and the orange and the yellow and the green.
Yeah.
Are we still in the orange or are we in yellow yet?
I'll show you.
Because I just keep thinking back to where we were in September and October. And when did we hit?
There's the map. You can see there's red pockets all across the country.
Yep.
Let me shrink it down a little bit. So, oh no. Shrunk the whole. Oh, there we go. Good. But you can see there are red pockets all across the country.
Yeah.
There are also green pockets all across the country. They tend to be the more rural
Is that
areas.
Vermont? Red?
No,
And then if you
New
look
York.
at the actual rankings,
we're way up
so
there.
the worst state is Alabama,
Not surprised.
Shocker.
but the second worst is Rhode Island.
Right.
Biggest little state in the union? What?
Maine is in fifth. Maine was historically a really
Yeah, they were
strong
really good.
state. New Hampshire is here at spot number 11, as I said. So, 13.9 new cases per 100,000 people.
Right. So we're not in the all clear yet.
We're not in the all clear. We're in the orange. So
It's way better than we were.
it is way better than we were when we were all deep red.
But yeah.
When it's
Trouble.
But
85
I-
degrees tomorrow, I am happy, hopefully, that those kids out in recess will
Yeah.
not be wearing masks if they don't want to.
Well, and when all the retired teachers end up on Facebook maskless eating scones,
That's
I'm
true.
just saying, I'm already, I'm gonna take the picture.
It's going to be your face on it. As long as it's the teacher, it's going to be you.
I
We
did,
designate that area as not school grounds for the afternoon.
I did bus dismissal today with a mask on. It was, Dan had a mask. All the teachers had masks on. We were all out there,
They're very good about it.
but
It's inconvenient, but necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. That brings us to the school start time. Oh, any other discussion about COVID? Did I skip ahead?
I think that's more than enough.
Okay, good. Let's not devote another minute to that.
I think we covered next meetings too.
Yeah.
We
Oh.
hit our quota.
Start times task force. This is exciting to me.
Yeah. So this task force was something that we had approved. It got shelved. It just did not happen with all the other initiatives, but we're bringing it back. I've asked the principals to help round out the committees. So our goal is to meet by month's end if we can make that happen. And at least begin the conversation and start to think about, so what data points do we need to collect in order to move forward? So none of this is really for next year. It would be something we would implement the year after. Although I do want to talk with the board later just about a few tweaks to times. They're not going to be upheavals. They're just adjustments that I think we can safely make still meeting all the requirements that we have. So we'll have that conversation when it gels a little bit better. But in the meantime, very excited that this committee can start meeting and really envisioning how to go at this correctly, or not correctly, but with a different look.
Yeah. Are the members listed here? Have they all been contacted and have they signed on for? Just because it was 2 years ago, it looks like that it was.
Yeah. So let me walk through it.
Okay.
Bear with me a minute. So at the high school, there were 2 students selected, one backed out. So Matt is a new student. He's ready to roll, and Bill's going to get me another name by Monday. The parents, basically, the high school their PTO is sticking with Julie. So I've heard back that that's definitive, and I'm waiting to hear from the middle school and the elementary school for a member.
Dan asked last night at the PTO meeting, so he should have a name for you by the end of the week.
Excellent. Good. I've reached out to Patrick and have not heard. The teachers who were on here were named last time, and I'm just confirming, are they still in? I suspect that they're not all full in. So I think there'll be some shifting that takes place. It's the 3 principals, the athletic director. We added for board members, both Tara and Heidi, so that both are on there. And let's see if I got this right, but Heidi, you will be finishing up as a GMS parent this year, but you have a great recent experience with GMS and then have had an experience with LMS. And Tara, you're finishing up as an LMS parent and are looking at the CHS side. So I really think you're kind of bridging the 3 schools with, like Dan was arguing with me that he was disadvantaged because there were 2 LMS interests and only 1 GMS. And I'm like, and it's a former GM. I'm like, stop it. It's fine. The point is they cover the
GMS will always have my heart. Don't worry, Dan.
I said the same thing.
I will. I got you covered, Dan. Don't worry.
There you go. So I think he was joking, but I'm not sure. So anyway, yes, other than the teachers, that I need to wait to hear back from Patrick. So that's it. We'll keep plugging. And I think it's real exciting work that lays ahead for us. So
Great. Any questions on the manifest? And then we'll have public input. Again, the Google Meet for public input is meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK.
Oh, it was you.
Wah, wah. And you can join by phone at 1-662-565-5146. The PIN is 911-992-355#. And our next meeting will be June 2nd, 2021, here at Town Hall at 5 p.m. And if you have input that you are not able to share with us this evening through Google Meet or phone calls, you can always email the board at schoolboard@litchfieldsd.org.
Does anybody know if the town yet got rid of the requirement of the number of people in this room?
It still had the sign on the door.
It's still 12.
I hope they revisit their next meeting.
I know,
Which I
because I
believe
was
is
wondering
Monday.
if by the next meeting, could we have
That would be
public
really
here?
nice to have.
Yeah.
Public. Okay.
So
Nothing there.
there's nobody there.
All
except
by
me.
yourself, Mike.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Nope, I'm sorry. I will not make a motion to adjourn. I withdraw that motion. But I will ask for a roll call vote to go into non-public session. According to RSA 91-A:311, A through C, pertaining to the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Brian?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That will go into non-public.